Chapter 21:10. For Wang Yijian and the others at the heaven opening stage, having a lifespan of 1,000,000 years was nothing. However, before that, Han Fei found the sword god and Tai Yuan. Han Fei said, "Seniors, I have one more thing to ask." The sword god asked, "What is it?" Han Fei said, "I want to know the origin of the sea-quelling painting." The sea-quelling painting? Tai Yuan couldn't help but say, "So it's this thing? That's also from the Imperial Palace. However, except that it's a small world, the sea-quelling painting doesn't seem to have any secret." Han Fei was a little puzzled. The sea-quelling paintings were available in every immortal palace. There should be 36 of them, and each sea-quelling painting was tens of thousands of kilometers in size. Han Fei wondered if this was someone's origin sea. If it was, there might be some secrets in it. Tai Yuan said, "This painting came from the Imperial Palace. When we got it, we also studied it, but we didn't find any secret. But we were afraid that there were mysteries in it. We didn't want to control this painting, so we divided it into 36 parts." The sword god said, "The kings studied it together for hundreds of years, but they didn't find the mystery. Do you think it really wants the origin sea?" Han Fei nodded. "Yes." Tai Yuan said, "More than 10,000 years after we became kings, after we had a certain understanding of the origin sea, we pieced the sea-quelling painting together again and exchanged it for research. Although it was too similar to the origin sea, the king's origin sea didn't connect to the star sea, so the sea-quelling painting did point us in a direction. The sky-opening painting may be to create a sky in the origin sea, where the sun rose and the moon set. However, after studying it again, we only found this. Later, when we entered the Imperial Palace, there was a battle. The yin-yang heaven and the waterwood heaven entered the abyssal chasm, and the sea-quelling painting could no longer be pieced together. What, do you have an idea? Exchange research? Han Fei couldn't help but think, so the yin-yang heaven's share should have belonged to the Brahma Sound heaven, right? He wondered what the yin-yang heaven's share was like. Han Fei said, "I want to study it. If it is the origin sea, can it still be separated?" Tai Yuan smiled and said, "Logically speaking, with the origin sea separated like this, how can it still survive? Our guess is that this is only the origin sea of that person from the Dharch Palace. Although he has fallen, the origin sea will not. It was only sealed in this painting by that expert." Chu Hao's origin sea? Han Fei couldn't help but be suspicious, but he also had something to ask him. After so many years, the sea-quelling painting should be reunited. Han Fei said, "Seniors, can you lend me the sea-quelling painting?" The sword god had no interest in the sea-quelling painting and threw it out casually. "If you want a complete sea-quelling painting, you may have to look for 10-colored sky." Tai Yuan also took out the sea-quelling painting and said, "We've guessed that even if this is the origin sea of Emperor, it's still a treasure. However, the spiritual energy and resources in the sea-quelling painting were sparse, and the only things worth studying were the dangerous places. It seems to coincide with the great Daos of our 36 immortal palaces, as well as some great Daos that the 36 of us did not walk. But now that we've reached the sea-quelling stage, other great Daos are not very meaningful. Everyone knows that the great Daos are chosen by people. Just looking at the sea-quelling painting is not of much reference value." Han Fei couldn't help frowning. Tai Yuan and the sword god were both heaven-opening state powerhouses. The sea-quelling painting had been in their hands for so many years, so they must have studied it countless times. Even they didn't think it was of much use. Was there really no secret in the sea-quelling painting? However, no matter whether it was useful or not, Han Fei felt that he'd better get it and study it. After bidding farewell to Tai Yuan and the sword god, Han Fei returned to the immortal palaces. At this moment, the immortal palaces gathered not far away from each other. The lords were opening a relatively large space gap to put all the immortal palaces in. In the outside world, only an empty gate was left, which was called the South Heaven Gate. When Han Fei entered the space gap, he scanned with his perception. Good heavens, except for the 35 immortal palaces, almost all the venerables in the heaven realm had a floating island as their cultivation place. Han Fei was speechless. If there was a venerable in the future who could bring a small floating island here, how many floating islands would they get? Han Fei shouted. Those people who are moving the floating islands don't occupy the land of the main cities of the 36 immortal palaces. If something happens in the future, they may have to fly up here. Your Majesty, we know. We dug these out from a levitating stone mine. Han Fei was relieved when he heard this. He thought these people had dug all the floating islands in the human world. If they were just dug from the floating stone vein, it wouldn't matter. However, Han Fei looked at the space gap that was getting bigger and bigger. He wondered how big this place would be if every venerable got a small floating island here in the future. Looking at the scene of hundreds of small floating islands surrounding the immortal palaces, Han Fei felt a little dreamy. Why did the heaven realm look like a palace? Luo Xiaobai and the others were helping to open up a small world, but they didn't get their own floating island here. It was mainly because Xia Shaochan bragged to them that it was more comfortable to stay in the human world. Staying in a place like the heaven realm, they might not see anyone for a day and would be bored to death. Luo Xiaobai and the others thought so none of them planned to take root here. When Han Fei arrived, Xia Shaochan shouted, "Don't just stand there. Help me open it up." There were two main steps to opening a space gap. First, like blowing bubbles, you had to expand the space within a certain range, which would cause the barrier of this space and the barrier of the real world to become thinner. So the second step was to strengthen the space gap, which required another space barrier to be opened outside the space. But in any case, in the final analysis, it was to separate a layer between the real world and the void. It was not easy to do when one was in the venerable realm, but when one reached the sea expansion realm, everyone could understand the relationship between the real world and the void and find the balance point, so it was much easier to open it up. Han Fei was not interested in doing this. He said, "You don't live here. Why do you bother?" Then Han Fei said, "Kings gather." After a moment, everyone gathered in the yin-yang heaven. Looking at the shabby appearance of the yin-yang heaven, the kings thought to themselves, "You've never lived in an immortal palace, have you? Why don't you build your own house?" More than 90,000 years ago, the yin-yang heaven still had a yard, but now there was only a house left. Besides, this house was obviously built by Jiang Linxian back then. Except for the house, there was not even a puppet here. Everyone was speechless. Sure enough, people didn't need puppets to serve them even if they didn't live here. The Snow Lady asked, "Your Majesty, what's the matter that requires all of us to come here?" Han Fei said, "I have a presumptuous request. I hope you can lend me the sea-quelling painting for me to study. Since the sea-quelling painting was reunited more than 80,000 years ago, it has never been pieced together again." Huang Jie said, "Isn't that thing useless? I've studied it thousands of times. Except that it can serve as a small world, it's useless." Lei Qing said, "Your Majesty, if you need it, you can take it. In the early years, this painting has been studied by the kings twice, each time for hundreds of years. We even exchanged our research, but no one was able to figure it out." Even Han Xian said, "That thing? I haven't been able to figure it out either. Your father's painting is with me, but I'm smarter than them. I've integrated the essence of many dangerous places in the sea-quelling painting into the trial of the Nine-Palace Heaven. After you finish the trial of the Nine-Palace Heaven, you've almost finished the dangerous places in the sea-quelling painting." Everyone couldn't help looking at Han Xian. Really? Even Han Fei looked at Han Xian in astonishment. I was wondering where the Nine-Palace Heaven had so many exquisite trials. Did you get them from the sea-quelling painting? Han Xian said, "If you want to find the secret of the sea-quelling painting, you may have to go to the Imperial Palace. But if you want it, everyone can take it out. Anyway, you can't find anything. You might as well give it to Han Fei. As the human majesty, if you can't even get this, you'll be too ashamed. Giggle Hua Qianyue of the 100 Flowers Palace casually threw the sea-quelling painting to Han Fei. I've planted flowers in it. If you can't find anything, help me spread them in the future. Flowers will fill the world. Han Fei nodded. Okay, with a thought from Hong Yu, tens of thousands of corpses appeared behind him, and he said with a dry smile, Well, Your Majesty, refining corpses is an eyesore, so I didn't refine them in my origin sea. So I opened up a bunch of graveyards in the sea-quelling painting. Take it and wipe out those graveyards. Zhao Xianglong nodded. My share should be in He Daoyuan's hands. Han Fei said. He Daoyuan has 6 shares. I've brought them all. Sha Zhimeng threw out the sea-quelling painting. I've set up 9 layers of dreams inside. It shouldn't be difficult for you to break them, Your Majesty. Sha Zhimeng could appear here because Han Fei hadn't done anything yet. On the one hand, he couldn't do anything, and on the other hand, Sha Zhimeng had a very good reputation in the dream heaven. If he killed her, the people of the dream heaven would probably have a bad impression of Han Fei. But Sha Zhimeng still didn't have a good impression of Han Fei at all, because Han Fei killed her teacher, Wan Qingling. Old Lady Qiu threw out the sea-quelling painting. Your Majesty, these are all basic medicinal materials for cultivating mutated spiritual medicines. They are not good stuff. Your Majesty, you can deal with them yourself. Hearing this, Huang Jie snorted coldly. Mutated spiritual medicines? I think they're mutated poisons, right? Old Lady Qiu turned her head away. She didn't expect to bump into Huang Jie again. Now Huang Jie glared at her and taunted her every day. If it weren't for the human emperor, she might have been poisoned to death by Huang Jie. However, Han Fei didn't care how they fought. That was their own business. After a while, all 35 sea-quelling paintings were completed. Xia Shaochan said, Isn't there still one left? Han Fei said, So I'm going to search for a few days to see if I can find the 10-colored sky. If I can't find the 10-colored sky, the sea-quelling painting can't run away. Anyway, I'll find it eventually. The 3rd chapter. Please vote for me. This scroll will end in a few days. End of this chapter. Chapter 21:11. The human race had returned to the land, and the situation of the 36 cities hadn't changed. However, everyone was now on the same land and had closer contact with each other. The Yin-Yang Heaven, the Pure Sun Sect, and the Moon Academy reopened. Xian Fenghui led the witch pirates back to the Moon Academy, which was unexpected to everyone. Zhou Chun of the Misfortune Pirates, Chen Guangjia of the Gale Pirates, and Shui Ran of the Red Fire Pirate. Now they had disbanded their pirate groups and joined the Yin-Yang Heaven. The Mermaid Pirates returned to the Mermaid Royal Family and disappeared. The Immortal Pirates had disappeared after He Daoyuan's immortal incarnation disappeared. The Divine Sect Pirates came from the undersea human race, and the remaining Peace Pirates really achieved his goal of peace. Because at this moment, he was the only one left of the top 10 pirate group. At this point, the top 10 pirate groups in the chaotic vast sea only existed in name. The Thug Academy had now become an elite academy of the Pure Sun Sect. In the past, the Thug Academy only accepted students from the Yin-Yang Heaven. Now, as soon as the news of the opening of the 2 academies was released, people from the 36 main cities came. Of course, most people came for Han Fei's name. In fact, the 36 cities all had their own top academies, and countless people went to each academy when it opened. Now was not the time to determine the teaching power and teaching potential. After a few decades, when the new generation grew up, the major academies would slowly compete with each other. Just as the families were rebuilding the foundation of the human race and replanning the city, Han Fei was already hundreds of millions of kilometers away. Every day, Han Fei's route was always fixed. Even if the golden light leaping technique could make Han Fei's speed reach the limit. However, Han Fei didn't understand how to exceed this limit. But he knew that the limit of speed was not the real limit. If the upper limit of speed was fixed, then how could those who were stronger than the heaven-opening state compete? In that case, who in the heaven-opening stage would be able to escape when being hunted down and killed? Of course, at least in the heaven-opening state, Han Fei didn't have to worry. This was because not everyone had the physique and strength like him to be able to maintain a state of extreme speed. This was the 23rd day since Han Fei set off. With his speed and the nautical panorama, he had searched for a full 23 days. It could be seen how big the search range had become. It should be around here. The creatures around here are mostly algae and corals, so it's dangerous. Han Fei frowned slightly. He didn't find any danger nearby. However, he found it strange that he couldn't see such undersea jungles in the surrounding tens of millions of miles, but he saw them here, and the range was over 12 million miles. An area dominated by marine plants. In addition to the many marine plants, Han Fei also found some strange seaweeds here. Bug. Han Fei once found a whole nest of insects in the underground palace, and there were actually a lot of insects under the ground of this sea area. No, if there are a lot of insects here, why are there so many algae? These insects are reared by humans. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. Han Guanshu once told him that the 10-colored heaven would produce insect masters. Controlling insects was their main method of battle. From the looks of it, he should have already found the 10-colored sky. Han Fei stretched out his hand and the nautical panorama appeared. After using it twice in a row, Han Fei used up the last chance of the day, and then he found a sealed undersea barrier. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. Since he was already here, why not go in? However, as Han Fei broke through the void and walked into this barrier, a colorful world appeared in front of him. Countless colorful sculptures were placed everywhere. There were colorful sea anemones, colorful jellyfish, weird sea dragons, starfish crawling everywhere, and many colorful shells with crystal shells. However, all of these were fake. They were all made up of a variety of colorful insects. Han Fei scanned with his senses, only to see a girl with colorful hair, blackish-purple lips, and blood-red eyelids were looking at him. The girl sat on a pink caterpillar and waved at Han Fei. "Long time no see." Han Fei took a deep breath and said incredulously, "Li Luoluo?" Han Fei couldn't help but be shocked. If he remembered correctly, Li Luoluo never came out after entering the ideal palace. Judging from her appearance, the girl in front of him was clearly the same person as Li Luoluo, who had multiple personalities, he knew. The girl shrugged slightly. "What? We haven't seen each other for only a few hundred years. Don't you recognize me?" Han Fei pointed and then looked around at the environment. This should have been an immortal palace before, but Li Luoluo transformed it into what it was now. Han Fei couldn't help narrowing his eyes. "Are you the master of the 10-colored sky?" Li Luoluo asked. "The master of the 10-colored sky?" Li Luoluo shook her head. "She died long ago. I just inherited her immortal palace. There are constant wars in the outside world, and many emperors have died recently. As a girl, how dare I go out casually? I could only hide a little deeper, but you still found me. But I didn't expect it to be you." Han Fei frowned. He couldn't figure out Li Luoluo's current aura. She should still be in the Pioneer Sea realm. However, the aura faintly emanating from her body seemed to have reached the end of the Pioneer Sea realm. Han Fei asked, "How did you enter the Yin-Yang heaven?" "To be precise, it was the projection of my clone." "When did you leave?" "Actually, I came out on the same day as you. However, everyone focused their attention on you, so no one paid attention to me." "I mean, how did you leave the small world where the Yin-Yang heaven is located?" Li Luoluo smiled. "Sacrifice. It was originally a clone of mine. I only needed to take the memory of this clone. I didn't care about the clone's life or death." Han Fei couldn't help but feel scared. In the past, there was a king lurking in the Yin-Yang heaven. Furthermore, with this clone, it could be said that he had traveled all over the Inyang sky. Ha ha ha. Don't be so serious. I don't mean anything bad. Everyone wants to go to the Immortal Palace. I went to the Inyang heaven, not to look for the Immortal Palace, but to find something. Huh. Han Fei was confused. What are you looking for? Li Luoluo said. The 10-color heaven controls the Zerg clan in the world. Of course, it's different from the pure Zerg clan. Han Guanshu, the former master of the 9-palace heaven, took the time worm and the space worm from the 10-color heaven. These two worms could give people a certain amount of power, allowing them to walk in the chaos of time and space without any obstacles. And if you want to use them, you'll probably leave a time wormhole. The reason why I went to the Inyang heaven was mainly to find these two worms. But I didn't find anything. Worms that can walk in the chaos? Li Luoluo asked. What do you think of? Han Fei asked. Where will they go? Li Luoluo shrugged. How would I know? The chaos is so big that there is no limit. It may be in a corner of the river of time. It may be in a node in space. It may be in a space in the river of time. When Han Guanshu and Jiang Linxian were not in the Inyang heaven, I knew they had probably entered the chaos. Han Fei seemed to understand something and couldn't help asking, then can the time worm and the space worm only allow one person to walk in the chaos? Li Luoluo smiled and said, yes. Han Fei immediately understood something. Old Han didn't know if he swallowed the space worm, but he must have swallowed the time worm. So he could walk in time. But he and Een couldn't. So he and Een couldn't travel through time. That's why I stole time, or rather, old Han and I intercepted the river of time together and sent me and Een back. Han Fei's heart shook. He was thinking about how to find old Han and the others, but then he met Li Luoluo, the hidden king. Han Fei couldn't help asking, then do you still have the time worm? Li Luoluo rolled her eyes. If I did, would I have to find it? Han Fei asked, then can you find these two worms? Can you trace them back to their current location? Li Luoluo shook her head. I can't find them, and it's impossible to find them. The treasures obtained by each palace are different, and there are only one or two of them. If you want to find them, you can only trace them back to history. Han Fei asked, have you found anything? Li Luoluo replied, of course not. I was lucky enough to get some ancient books of insect masters in the Inyang heaven. They should have been left by Han Guanshu or Jiang Linxian to use the time worm and the space worm. You're not here to ask questions, are you? As an old friend, shouldn't you treat me to a meal? The corners of Han Fei's mouth twitched. Is there anything to eat here? To eat worms? Chapter 21:12. After a moment, Han Fei caught some very ordinary marine creatures and made a barbecue. The two sat opposite each other around the grill. Han Fei said, I didn't expect you to still be alive and the master of the 10-color heaven. I didn't expect that you, who had just become a law enforcer, have already reached the sky-splitting realm. This speed of growth makes me seriously suspect that you are the reincarnation of a strong master. Han Fei smiled and said, if I am a reincarnation, how strong will my real body be? The two chatted for a while and Li Luoluo said, the 10-color heaven no longer exists. I died here. I'm not someone from the 10-colored sky either. I was just lost here, and in the end, I cultivated my reincarnation, which is why I walked this path. Han Fei couldn't help asking, what about your multiple personalities? Li Luoluo took a deep look at Han Fei. Her pupils changed, and her tone suddenly changed. Brother, long time no see. Wow, Li Kiki? Han Fei immediately took a breath. Let me ask you, how did you change so fast? Han Fei was speechless. Li Kiki, why don't we call Li Luoluo back? Brother, she is already a king. Multiple personalities can be shared with each other. So, it's the same whether she comes out or not. Han Fei had felt that there was something wrong with Li Luoluo, and Li Kiki was definitely not as innocent as she looked. Now that he looked at it, He realized that it was a projection of a king, and his acting was just like the real thing. At this moment, seeing the appearance of the 10-color heaven, Han Fei couldn't help saying, "Since there is no one in the 10-color heaven, what are you doing here alone?" "To take refuge," Li Kiki said in a delicate voice. "It's too terrible outside. A king dies every few days. I'm just a girl. How dare I go there? Come back." Han Fei's face turned black. Li Kiki was really good at deceiving people in the past. Now that Han Fei knew that she was a king, how could he be deceived by her again? Sure enough, seeing that Han Fei couldn't stand it anymore, Li Kiki turned back into Li Luoluo. She said, "So many of you are fighting so hard, but I am the only one in the 10-color heaven. Why should I participate in this chaotic world again? You didn't come all the way here just to reminisce with me, did you?" Han Fei said straightforwardly, "I'm here for the sea-quelling painting. It should be with you, right?" "Here." Li Luoluo didn't deny it. Han Fei had already found this place. If she said she wasn't here, Han Fei wouldn't believe her. So, she took out the sea-quelling painting and said, "This thing is not very useful. This is where I nurture my spirit insects. I'll give it to you if you want." Han Fei accepted it without hesitation. He had come all this way for this sea-quelling painting. Putting away the sea-quelling painting, Han Fei said, "Now, the chaotic battles in the chaotic ocean have come to an end. The 36 immortal palaces of the human race had been unified. From now on, it will no longer fall apart. So, are you interested in returning?" Li Luoluo shook her head slightly. "There's no need to return. I am the only one left in the 10-colored sky. If there's a chance, I'll go to a place ruled by humans to take a look. Of course, if you want to leave the chaotic ocean, I'm still willing to go." Han Fei knew he would definitely leave. Li Luoluo's background was unknown, and she was a very special insect master, which was very dangerous. If he was right, her strength should not be low. It was not necessarily a good thing for such a person to stay in the chaotic ocean. So Han Fei said, "In the next 100 years, you'd better pay attention to the movements of the human race. When I'm about to leave the chaotic ocean, I hope you can come too." Li Luoluo knew that Han Fei had some concerns, so she nodded slightly. "I will." Han Fei didn't reminisce with Li Luoluo, because there was nothing to reminisce about. If Li Luoluo didn't come, he would come to her again. Anyway, he had to take this woman away from the chaotic ocean. After Han Fei left, Li Luoluo said to herself, "It seems that I can't stay in the chaotic ocean any longer." He can even find this place. It can be seen that the nautical instrument is really powerful. It's a pity that I can't find the time worm and the space worm. Then Li Luoluo changed her voice to Li Kik. "If you can't find it for the time being, forget it. Anyway, Han Fei may go to find Han Guanshu and Jiang Linxian in the future. It's safer for him to take the risk than for us to find them in the Chaos Ocean." Then she heard another voice. "Then do you want to go out with him? In fact, we can also go out by offering sacrifices." Li Kiki sneered. "Do you really think there are no strong masters in the chaotic ocean? If we really offer sacrifices, how can the one behind us remain indifferent? Let's go out with him then. Although Han Fei doesn't trust us, at least we can get to know him, which is much better than being strangers. If he can find Han Guanshu and Jiang Linxian in the future, it will save us unnecessary dispute." Li Luoluo nodded. "Okay, let's do that." 1 month later. Somewhere in the sea, one scroll after another appeared in front of Han Fei. The scrolls were pieced together and soon formed a huge painting of mountains and rivers of the world. "This can't be the Emperor's origin sea." When Han Fei saw this painting, he immediately came to this conclusion. Tai Yuan and the Sword God didn't know, but he knew that the Emperor's origin sea had already turned into a star. If it was the Emperor's origin sea, then this sea-quelling painting should be a sphere when pieced together. However, no matter how Han Fei tried to piece it together, the gap between the head and the tail was not adjacent, which obviously didn't conform to the state of turning into a star. Since it was not the Emperor's origin sea, this thing couldn't be Chu Hao's origin sea. Others couldn't understand the sea-quelling painting because they didn't have the demon purification pot, but Han Fei had it, which was the real reason why he was determined to find the sea-quelling painting. Therefore, when this painting appeared and was pieced together, a message immediately appeared in his eyes. Name Universe Boundary Map. Introduction. This map is a primitive universe boundary map drawn by a strong master based on the heart of the sea realm. It can also be called the chaotic domain map. The star sea is also chaotic, and the stars in the map are like grains of sand. Each grain is a world. The red star is dangerous, the yellow star has been destroyed, the dark star is mostly the starting place, and the other heterochromatic stars are all demon stars. This map can seal and collect the aura of the Great Way. Quality. High-quality divine artifact, unrefined. Remarks. The Great Ways in the map are the special aura of the Great Way collected by the painter when he explored the star sea. After reading the description, Han Fei couldn't help but take a breath. Universe boundary map? Is it the star sea that I opened up when I opened the sky? It seemed that although this map was a divine artifact, its real function was a map. It was like a treasure map, except that this was the universe map of the chaotic sea. Han Fei couldn't help asking, Old Yuan, is the star sea the chaotic sea? The old turtle replied, You can understand it that way, because the star sea in the origin sea is a part of the chaotic sea. The strong masters go to the chaotic sea to find the starting place, which is actually in the star sea. Because once the sky is opened, the star sea is grafted there. The old turtle asked, Is this map related to the chaotic sea? In the sea-quelling painting, Han Fei raised his head. When night fell, the starry sky shone. In an instant, he was stunned by the starry river that filled the sky. Before, because he didn't know, he only saw it as a starry sky. Then, Han Fei's vision had changed. This was no longer as simple as a starry sky, but a sea that contained the chaotic sea and the starry sky. Here, each star was a world. One world after another formed the star sea. Just when Han Fei was in shock, the old turtle said, Oh, so this is the star sea map? Just how powerful did the person who drew it have to be able to draw this sea of stars? Han Fei's heart did a flip. In this case, when he went to get the origin water, didn't he already enter the star sea? Han Fei observed the star sea map. A large number of bright yellow stars were flashing, among which about 20% were red stars. What were dark stars? He didn't seem to see them. Han Fei said, Old Yuan, how can I find the starting place here? You can also find the starting place in this map. This is just a map. He drew the Chaos Sea map, but it doesn't mean that the world in this map is Chaotic Sea. This is just a map in the Star Sea. If there is a starting place... The old turtle couldn't help but be shocked. If there is a starting place, then this starting place must have not been explored. It is also covered by the chaotic mist. That is to say, if you find the starting place here, then you can also find it in the real Star Sea, and it is the kind of starting place that has not been explored. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. So, this map is actually very amazing, right? Han Fei glanced around, and he really didn't see the so-called dark star. However, it was said that it was a dark star, so it was probably not something that could be seen with the naked eye. As for how to see it, Han Fei still needed to think about it. I can't roam the chaotic sea, but can't I roam a map? Han Fei felt that he still had a lot of time to study this star sea. Besides, he still had the nautical panorama. Han Fei wanted to point the nautical panorama to a random dark star on this map. Sure enough, Han Fei soon saw that the nautical panorama pointed to the vicinity of a red star. Han Fei couldn't help but exclaim, This is the real treasure. Chapter 21:13. The Imperial Palace. After finding the sea-quelling painting and knowing its secrets, Han Fei came to the Imperial Palace again. If an ordinary person came, the imperial palace would definitely not open it, nor would there be any response. But Han Fei and Chu Hao had an agreement. Han Fei's purpose of coming here would only be to leave the chaotic ocean in the future, so Han Fei soon felt the fog rising. In the fog, an iron tower-like brawny man walked out. This was Chu Hao's puppet and could be regarded as the guardian of the imperial palace. Meeting him was no different from meeting Chu Hao. Sure enough, the puppet said, "Are you ready to leave the chaotic ocean?" Han Fei said, "Anyway, it won't be too late. The enemies here have been eliminated. It's useless to stay here for thousands of years." Chu Hao said unhurriedly, "Your speed is faster than I imagined. What do you want to ask me today?" Han Fei asked, "First of all, apart from you and the Beast King, are there any other emperors secretly protecting the chaotic ocean? It seems that you have a lot of ideas in mind." Chu Hao said, "Do you know what kind of position the chaotic vast ocean has in the ocean realm?" Han Fei. Chu Hao said, "The sea realm is huge and can accommodate thousands of clans. In the past, after the gods fell, the masters of thousands of clans constantly opened up the chaotic sea and searched for the starting ground in order to become gods. The starting ground is rare, so the masters of thousands of clans must fight for it. The chaotic ocean used to be a starting ground. The so-called starting ground is some undeveloped and unknown areas that haven't been integrated into the sea realm. The chaotic ocean was excavated in the chaotic wasteland. However, not all of the starting grounds could be easily taken away. The chaotic ocean is such a place. Later, for unknown reasons, or maybe the means of a certain master, it fell into the chaotic wasteland and is difficult to find. Even if it is found, people will only think it is a primitive graveyard. Maybe they will explore it, but generally they don't have much hope. Chaotic wasteland? Primitive graveyard? When Han Fei killed the Sea Realm masters of the Frogman clan, they talked about this term. Chu Hao said, "The chaotic wasteland is a territory of the Sea Realm. In the beginning, it might have been an ancient battlefield in the chaotic sea. Then, the battlefield collapsed and fell into the Sea Realm, finally forming the chaotic wasteland. There are many primitive graveyards buried here. You can think of it as the starting ground that has been cleaned. The primitive graveyard did not mean that there were no living beings or races living in it. In fact, there are many people who roam the primitive graveyard all year round, searching for opportunities in the ruins. You can think of them as wasteland scavengers." Wasteland scavenger? Therefore, the few people that he had killed previously should have been scavenging in the chaotic wasteland, right? What does this have to do with whether or not the chaotic Azure Sea is protected by an emperor? Chu Hao said, "Don't be anxious. There were rules in the primal chaos wasteland. For example, the family that had enmity with the Merfolk royal family had tried to invade this place many times. Do you really think a remnant of my soul and that ape can stop them? That ape may have entered the Emperor realm, but he still has a long way to go." Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Who is that?" Chu Hao said, "There are also extremely powerful scavengers. Although anyone can break into the chaotic wasteland and look for opportunities. However, if an emperor comes in and destroys it at will, how can ordinary people scavenge?" You mean, some powerful beings among the scavengers are helping us?" Chu Hao shook his head. "Not necessarily. It's possible that they are interested in this primitive land and want to nurture it and harvest it slowly." Han Fei couldn't help but frown. If such a powerful being wanted to harvest the chaotic Azure Sea, what should he do? Chu Hao said, "You don't have to worry too much. If he really wanted to harvest it, he would have done it long ago. The chaotic Azure Sea must be a bit special. Since the inheritance of the Void Temple can be found here, it means that there are probably some special strong masters protecting this place, or they may be from the Void Temple. It's also because of this that I chose to perish here." Han Fei asked, "How big is the wasteland? Are there many strong masters?" Chu Hao said, "As for how big it is, There are always a lot of people in a place like the chaotic Azure Sea. After you go out, you will find that the sea realm is really very big. Even I dare not say that I have explored all of the sea realm. Of course, although it's big, there are not many famous ones. You will get used to it when you go out. Han Fei nodded slightly. Will I be hunted when I go out? Chu Hao chuckled. Do you think they are so free that they will come to hunt you? The chaotic Azure Sea, because of its unknown particularity, people don't like to pay attention to it at all. Unless someone brazenly invades and runs amok in the scavenger's territory, do you think anyone will be willing to care? Han Fei was slightly relieved. As long as he was not hunted as soon as he went out, it would be fine. From the conversation just now, Han Fei indirectly learned that there should be no problem with Beast Kings, but Beast Kings didn't seem powerful in Chu Hao's eyes. Han Fei then said, in addition to some things in the outside world, I also want to know the function of the sea-quelling painting. Have you collected all of them? Chu Hao said calmly, if it's that thing, it's not an ordinary item. When I obtained the demon refining gourd back then, I picked it up along the way. It is a map of the Sea of Stars. I am the Sea of Stars in your origin sea. But it is not marked completely, and only a very small part of the place is marked. The real Sea of Stars, the brilliant galaxy, is not something that can be drawn by a map. However, the level of this map is not low. It can draw such a realm. Even if it is not a god, it may not be far from being a god. So, if you wander in it, maybe you will find a few starting lands. But I advise you to be careful. The starting lands are not easy to get. While it represents endless resources, it may also represent great danger. Han Fei thought for a while and nodded slightly. At least, Chu Hao did not deceive him. As for whether he should find the starting lands or not, he would have to wait until he walked out of the chaotic wasteland. Even Chu Hao, as a venerable emperor, said that the sea realm was vast and there were many strong people. So, if he went out, the first thing he should do was to adapt to it. Only by adapting to it could he be qualified to talk about other things. Presumably, when Chu Xia Hongzhu met the Yin family, she also wanted to lead the people of her family to choose a place to settle down. Unexpectedly, she was cheated by the Yin family. Therefore, no matter when, it was definitely not good to rely on others. To forge iron, one had to be strong himself. All external help could only be considered as help at most. 3 months later. Thug Academy. Xia Shaochan and the others chose to live in the Thug Academy temporarily. During this time, they mainly consulted Han Fei about the blind spots of the sea expansion realm. Because they could learn from Han Fei, it saved them a lot of time on the road to the sea expansion realm. Now they were exploring the origin sea every day, crazily exploring at all costs. From the Grand Purity Palace and the Wuji Heaven, each of them gained a lot. During the 200 years when Han Fei hid his identity, they just used up all the resources they had, and the origin sea was less than 30,000 kilometers wide. Now that they had a new batch of resources, they naturally used them to explore the origin sea. Han Fei estimated that without 1,000 years and enough resources, it would be very difficult for them to reach the limit of the sea expansion realm so quickly. With the resources of their current origin sea, it would be hard for them to explore 50,000 kilometers. Therefore, everyone was actually waiting for Xia Shaochan to give birth. When Xia Shaochan gave birth, it wouldn't be long before Han Fei would definitely leave. They were all cultivators. It was true that children were important, but on the path of cultivation, how could they stop advancing just because they had children? On the contrary, it was because after having a child, they would have a stronger motivation. The stronger he was, the better he could protect his child. Perhaps because Han Fei was also anxious, on this day, Han Fei decided to take Xia Shaochan to his origin sea to accelerate the pregnancy. Now, in his origin sea, 1 year of cultivation was equivalent to 256 years. Maybe after staying in his origin sea for a year, a child would be born. Xia Shaochan asked, "Isn't this too fast?" I'm not ready yet. Han Fei shrugged. You can't really prepare for 180 years, right? Besides, after cultivating for 180 years in my origin sea, we may be able to go to the outside world for another 800 years. Xia Xiaochan thought it made sense, so she said, Let's go. Have you prepared enough resources? Han Fei smiled. Of course. Therefore, in Han Fei's origin sea, he saw a huge amount of energy rolling towards Xia Xiaochan every day. Han Fei couldn't help but click his tongue. She hadn't even been born yet and she was already eating like this. How would she eat after she was born? She couldn't afford to raise her. However, after only staying in the origin sea for 3 days, Han Fei felt that his head was about to explode, and the aura of the Great Way in his origin sea was all gone. And the chaotic energy and the immortal spiritual energy were also running out. Han Fei even found that there was time power pouring into Xia Xiaochan's body. F***ck. On the 3rd day, not only Han Fei's head was about to explode, but so was Xia Xiaochan's. She said, Is my baby eating too much? I feel that there are a lot of complicated forces pouring into my body, and my lifespan is shrinking rapidly. I'm afraid that nearly 10,000 years have been taken away. What? Han Fei was shocked when he heard this. How come Xia Xiaochan's lifespan is being absorbed again? Didn't she just eat a chaotic green lotus? Let's go. Let's get out. Outside, Lu Renkuang was arguing with Old Bai and the others about their realms. Seeing Han Fei and the others come out, he couldn't help but be surprised. Didn't you just go in? Why are you out again? Han Fei said with a black face, Go ahead. Han Fei's heart sank. Isn't this a trap? What if my vitality is being devoured again? A chaotic green lotus is not enough? Where can I find such a treasure? Chapter 21:14. Han Fei had no experience in this kind of thing. Senior Sister Green Lotus and the others said it was nothing, but it didn't take long for the Chaos Green Lotus to be absorbed. How long had it been? Her son was absorbing the Great Tao, the immortal spiritual qi, and Xia Xiaochan's lifespan. It would be a big deal if he didn't handle it well. Senior Sister Green Lotus and the others had said that because Xia Xiaochan was now full of divine blood, the child she gave birth to would be a god's son. Needless to say, it was definitely a gifted child. Perhaps because it was too difficult to conceive a god's son, the nutrients he needed were also very terrifying. Han Fei didn't dare to neglect it. He used the excuse of going out to look for medicine and directly contacted eldest senior brother. Anyway, for the senior brothers and senior sisters of the Void Temple, it didn't seem to be a big deal. Senior Sister Green Lotus sent a Chaos Green Lotus over. This kind of high-level treasure couldn't be found in the chaotic ocean sea, so he could only pin his hopes on them. 1 day later, inside the Bronze Gate, this time only the 2 senior sisters Green Lotus and Red Lotus came. As soon as he entered, he heard Senior Sister Green Lotus said, Little junior brother, I heard that your wife encountered some problems again? Han Fei scratched his head and said, Senior Sister Green Lotus, I didn't want to trouble you with this matter. But my child seems to need vitality and resources too much. The Chaos Green Lotus was completely absorbed in just a year. Not much time had passed since then. I brought it into my origin sea and accelerated time, trying to speed up his birth. However, the Taoist aura, Chaos aura, and immortal spiritual aura in my origin sea were almost sucked dry in just 3 days. Nearly 10,000 years of my wife's lifespan was forcibly sucked away. The place where I live is relatively barren. I was afraid that something would go wrong, so I asked eldest senior brother and senior sisters for help. The Green Lotus and the Red Lotus swayed a little in the pond. Senior Sister Green Lotus said in surprise, Are you so talented? Senior Sister Red Lotus said, You said you can accelerate time in your origin sea? Han Fei didn't deny it. After all, he was about to come to the sea realm. The fact that he walked the great path of time would most likely be exposed. So he said, I cultivate many Daos at the same time. The great path of time is also one of my great paths. Others might not know about this, but eldest senior brother knew about it. They were all family, so there was no need to hide it from him. This time, without waiting for senior sister Blue Lotus and the others to answer, eldest senior brother personally asked, "The great Tao of time is an extremely powerful Tao. Your children must have inherited this Tao in advance, which is why the consumption rate has increased dramatically. What great Tao do you have?" Han Fei was stunned. "Is my son so awesome? He wasn't even born yet, and he was already walking on the great Tao?" Senior apprentice sister Red Lotus said, "In the sea realm, there are thousands of great Taos. Feel free to speak your mind. Even the great Tao of time has many people walking it." Han Fei knew that this was not the time to lie, so he said, "I have the great Tao of time, the great Tao of apocalypse, the great Tao of yin and yang, the great Tao of strength, the great Tao of gravity, the great Tao of space, and the great Tao of extreme speed. I specialize in body refining, Qinglian. Honglian." Han Fei waved his fingers and counted a dozen great Taos at once. Even eldest senior brother couldn't help but raise his hand. Green Lotus and Red Lotus looked at each other, speechless. Green Lotus said, "You still have to ask eldest senior brother. Your great Tao is quite strong. If all of them are inherited by your children at once, the vitality and energy that the mother needs to provide will be astronomical. Even if I give you another chaotic Green Lotus, I'm afraid it won't help." Han Fei's heart sank. Another chaotic Green Lotus won't help? Is it so serious? Han Fei couldn't help but look at eldest senior brother and directly clasped his fist. "Please help me, eldest senior brother." "Well," eldest senior brother said lightly, "the mother's body is weak because her potential hasn't been released before the sea expansion realm, and because her bloodline has completely recovered after the sea expansion realm, she has conceived a child in advance that she shouldn't have conceived. If you want your child to be born smoothly, your wife has to prove her Tao, but the child has already been conceived and needs the mother's energy. It is almost impossible for her to prove her Tao before the child is born. If you only rely on resources, your child can't get the ultimate inheritance of the powerful mother, which will reduce his talent. I can give you two choices." Han Fei said solemnly, "Eldest senior brother, please go ahead." Eldest senior brother said, "First, I give you resources to ensure the safety of your mother and child, and your child can be born smoothly. His aptitude will not be weak, but because he doesn't have the true potential of the mother, he will not be in the best state, but he will still be the son of a god. Second, seal your wife's body and your child. I'll cast a spell to take your wife's soul and reincarnate into the sea realm. When she proves her Tao, we'll reunite again. At that time, your wife's aptitude will be enough to bear the needs of the child. When the child is born, he will be talented and likely to become a god." Hiss! Han Fei gulped. He was almost scared by the words, "likely to become a god." But Han Fei's first reaction was, "If I completely take away her soul, what if she dies midway?" Eldest senior brother said, "You can keep a wisp of it. Even if it fails, you can reshape it. You can still choose the first choice." Han Fei's heart did a flip. "What do you mean by reincarnating?" Eldest senior brother said, "Reincarnate and completely recultivate. The shortcomings at the time of his birth can also be made up for." Hiss! Han Fei's eyelids twitched. Is this possible? Reincarnation? Could it be played like this? But Han Fei still hesitated. Eldest senior brother, what if she falls in love with someone else before she proves her Tao after reincarnation? The road to proving her Tao is long. I'm afraid it's hard to say what will happen in such a long time. Eldest senior brother said, "Sealing her lust will make it easier for her to cultivate. But there are also drawbacks. Even if you find her in the future, how to open her lust will be a problem." Han Fei couldn't help but frown. "She has no memory?" Eldest senior brother said, Yes, after she embarks on the road of cultivation, she will soon realize that her soul is deficient. If she persists, she may spend her whole life looking for it. But it's up to you to make her accept it and release the memories hidden in the deepest part of her heart. Han Fei didn't feel good. One was that she barely gave birth now, but the aptitude of the mother limited the upper limit of the child's potential, but the advantage was that she was born smoothly. The other was that after Xia Xiaochan recultivated, not only could she solve the congenital deficiency in her mother's womb, but also solve the upper limit of the child's potential and hope to become a god. However, he had to find a way to awaken Xia Xiaochan's lust. If eldest senior brother said it was difficult to awaken her lust, it must not be easy. This was a difficult choice, but Han Fei knew that this choice was not up to him, but to Xia Xiaochan. If it were him, wouldn't the sea expansion realm be strong? After all, Xia Xiaochan was the child of a god. Even if her potential hadn't reached the peak due to various reasons, if she gave birth to a child and recultivated, it would definitely not be a problem for her to open the sky. The way to prove her Tao was to comprehend the Tao on her own, so there was still hope. If he chose the second best, it was not too bad. Just when Han Fei was hesitating, eldest senior brother added, "If you choose the first option and nurture it with resources, it may take 10,000 years for your child to be born." Han Fei didn't feel good. Wasn't this the same as Xia Hongzhu's? Because Xia Hongzhu didn't have enough divine blood, Chun Huangyan nurtured her for 100,000 years before she gave birth to Xia Xiaochan. Now, because of her lack of potential, Xia Xiaochan gave birth to a child who had to be at least in the Emperor realm in advance. Alas, Green Lotus heaved a long sigh. "I thought a Chaos Green Lotus could solve this problem, but I didn't expect it to be so complicated." Red Lotus said, "The path of the strong is never easy. It's already a blessing to be able to give birth to a child. Little junior brother, you can choose whatever you want. But what?" Seeing that Red Lotus wanted to say something, Han Fei hesitated as if she had something to say. Red Lotus looked at eldest senior brother and said, "Can you let little junior brother know now?" Eldest senior brother thought for a while and nodded slightly. Han Fei didn't know why Red Lotus was so mysterious. It seemed that he shouldn't know in advance. Red Lotus said, "Little junior brother, do you know about the Battle of the Gods?" Han Fei remembered that Chu Hao had told him about it, so he nodded. "I know a thing or two." Red Lotus said, "Then you should know why the gods died, right?" Han Fei said, "A little, but I only know that it's related to something ominous." Red Lotus said, "The gods died for a reason. Although the sea realm is large, the darkness is restless. As I said before, the three shrines have different ideas. They are talking about ways to deal with the arrival of darkness, or rather, choices. I can only tell you that maybe in 100,000 years, or maybe 1,000,000 years, the ominous will eventually invade the sea realm, and darkness will eventually come. There are some things that even the gods can't avoid, let alone the sea expansion, the sky opening, and the Tao proving. The Void Temple also wants to stop the ominous. I think you can consider the second option. After all, your child is likely to become a god." Han Fei was touched. Senior sister Red Lotus's suggestion was obvious enough. She meant that if the ominous came, even the gods couldn't escape. How could others escape? She was telling him that if there was a god, he might be able to resist the ominous. She also reminded him that if he couldn't resist it, everything would be in vain, and he, Xia Xiaochan, and his child would eventually be annihilated in the ominous. Han Fei was shocked. "Thank you for telling me. Eldest senior brother, can you give me a few days to think about it?" Eldest senior brother nodded slightly. "This secret can't be leaked, nor can the Void Temple." Han Fei nodded. "Of course." Chapter 21:15. I choose the second one. At this moment, Han Fei and the other four gathered together, all looking solemn. Although this was Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan's business, they were too familiar with each other, and Han Fei wanted to hear their opinions. After all, this was an extremely difficult choice. Xia Xiaochan took a few breaths and made a decision. Han Fei's face immediately turned black. What do you mean by the second one? Have you thought it through? Be careful about this matter. If I choose the first one, I won't be able to make any progress for 10,000 years. If I want to give birth to a child, I will have to live for 10,000 years, or even tens of thousands of years. How can it take so long to give birth to a child? Han Fei scoffed. Damn it. Xia Xiaochan yelled, that's a special case. You are also a special case now. Xia Xiaochan pouted. I definitely have to choose the second one. First of all, I was congenitally deficient when I was born. Even if I recultivate, I can't recultivate the same as I was in my mother's womb. Secondly, if my son has a potential problem because of me, he may only be able to become a god in the end. How can that be okay? How difficult is it to become a god? My mother is the son of a god, but she hasn't become a god yet. My son has the potential to become a god. How can I let him kill him? Han Fei asked. The point is, what if you don't recognize me then? Xia Xiaochan said, okay. You can't even cure your wife? Han Fei didn't know what to say to that. Zhang Xuanyu and Lu Renquang were dumbfounded. This is King unbelievable. How can it be so unbelievable? Suddenly, Luo Xiaobai asked, who gave you these two solutions? Such methods are unimaginable. The resources in your origin sea couldn't even last 3 days, and little cicada lost 10,000 years of her lifespan, but this person can easily deal with it. Not to mention, this is not something that can be done by someone at the heaven opening stage. Han Fei had already thought of an excuse. The Supreme Emperor said so. Xia Xiaochan and the other three immediately took a breath. Chaotic ocean? Where did the Supreme Emperor come from? Luo Xiaobai asked. The one in the Imperial Palace is not dead? No, it can capture Xiaochan's divine soul and throw it into the sea realm. If that person in the Imperial Palace had such ability, why would he still be hiding here? Not the one in the Imperial Palace, but the one behind the Martial Emperor City. Zhang Xuanyu was surprised. You even know this? Lu Renquang asked. Do you have such a relationship with Emperor? Luo Xiaobai was surprised. Why did he help you? I can't tell you who he is, but he is absolutely trustworthy. Xia Xiaochan suddenly said, wait a minute, I have a question. The day you left, I sensed that you didn't go to see old Madame Chiu. So, I went to ask her, but she didn't know anything about the Green Lotus. You've never gone to the Medicine King Sky to ask for medicine, so where did you get the Green Lotus you gave me? Is he also the venerable sovereign behind Martial Emperor City? Han Fei nodded. That Green Lotus is a chaos spiritual treasure, an existence even more advanced than natural spiritual treasures. How could it possibly exist in the chaotic ocean? Luo Xiaobai and the others didn't know this, but they immediately thought of Han Fei when he was trapped in the infinite void. Was it at that time that Han Fei was rescued by the venerable sovereign behind Martial Emperor City? Luo Xiaobai asked again, why is he so nice to you? Is it not enough to help you? Why can't he help Xiaochan? Han Fei pondered and said, I can't say it. It involves too many secrets. Some names can't even be said, so they won't leave any impression in your memory. Wow, the four of them were all stunned. Was it so exaggerated that they couldn't even say the names? Zhang Xuanyu said, well, if you can't say it, then don't say it, as long as it's trustworthy. But I think, Fei, you asking us means that you are also having a hard time choosing. But since you asked, it means that you also want to choose the second one, right? Lu Renquang said, actually, I think the first one is better. It's safe and comfortable. Xia Xiaochan said, shut up. After tens of thousands of years, you will all be able to open the sky and maybe even reach the Tao realm. I have just given birth to the child, and I have to recultivate. Then I will be too far behind you. Lu Renkuang said, "You can't say that. When the time comes, a group of big shots will protect you, and you will be happy, right?" Xia Shaochan snorted. "Forget it. If I choose the second one now, maybe I will lose my lust within 10,000 years, but I won't know it, so I won't be in pain. I just need to wait for Han Fei to come to me. Besides, if I can reach the Tao realm, maybe I can remember it myself and even find it. Isn't it just a matter of order? By then, I will have reached the Tao realm." Lu Renkuang choked. "That does make sense." Han Fei looked at Luo Xiaobai, only to hear her say, "Don't look at me. You know who I will choose." Xia Shaochan looked at Han Fei seriously this time. "What we have to consider now is not a question of choice. It's that since my body and my child are to be sealed, they have to be sealed in the mermaid royal family and taken care of by my mother. Although I don't know how serious her injury is, at least I can be sure that her injury will not heal within 1,000 years." Lu Renkuang asked, "Can't it be in Han Fei's origin sea?" Zhang Xuanyu kicked Lu Renkuang. "Are you stupid? After staying in it for 3 days, Xia Shaochan has lost 10,000 years of lifespan. If she stays in his origin sea, after 10 days or half a month, won't she be sucked dry?" Oh, I forgot about this." Han Fei saw that the 4 people on the opposite side had reached a consensus. This time, Xia Shaochan, who had always been a little lovey-dovey, was also very firm. In fact, with eldest senior brother's help, Han Fei knew that the second choice had a good chance of success. After all, Xia Shaochan was born with the blood of gods, so her growth must be very fast. If she was reincarnated in the sea realm, how could eldest senior brother find a random family to be reincarnated in? He would definitely give her special treatment and find a reliable reincarnation. The main reason was that the sea realm was dangerous, and Han Fei was actually afraid that something would happen to him. However, now that things had come to this, he had to make a choice. In his heart, he actually wanted to choose the second one. So Han Fei made up his mind and looked at Xia Shaochan seriously. Okay. Now, his child was absorbing Xia Shaochan's lifespan every moment, and he had to make a decision immediately. When Han Fei made this decision, Luo Xiaobai and the others all sighed in their hearts. If possible, they didn't want to see such a scene. Half a day later, in the hall of Mermaid Royal Family, Xia Hongzhu. A child of God? Xia Hongzhu's face changed drastically. He glanced at Xia Shaochan as if he had seen through her. When Xia Hongzhu felt the source of power that was slowly absorbing Han Fei's vitality, she couldn't help but take a breath. It's indeed a child of God. With your realm, you haven't even reached the peak of the Pioneer Sea state, and it will cost you too much to conceive a child of God. I'm afraid the price will not be lower than when I gave birth to you. It took me 100,000 years because I was in the Pioneer realm and had gone very far. Now, even if I protect you, I'm afraid it will take me 30 or 50,000 years to give birth to this child." Xia Shaochan said, "Mom, we already have a countermeasure." You? What countermeasure do you have?" After a while, when Han Fei told his plan, Xia Hongzhu looked at him deeply for a long time. She didn't doubt Han Fei's purpose. As Han Fei said, if there was such a good thing, why would it fall on him? What was the relationship between him and the sovereign? Why would he help him so much? In fact, Han Fei had thought of asking the Beast King to look after Xia Shaochan. After all, the Beast King was more reliable than the Mermaid Royal Family. However, if the Beast King guarded the chaotic Azure Sea and fought with invaders from time to time, he might as well stay with the Mermaid Royal Family. Xia Hongzhu said, "Where is the sovereign? Can I see him?" Han Fei shook his head. "I can't see him. Maybe I can feel him when he takes action." Xia Hongzhu asked, "Do you know how long it will take to seal the bodies of Shaochan and the child with thunderous means and keep them there until she recultivates?" Han Fei said, "I don't know." Xia Hongzhu said, "It's taken me 50,000 years, but I haven't proved my Tao yet. Han Fei said, Mother-in-law, you weren't born in the sea realm. The chaotic azure sea can't compare to the sea realm. Xia Hongzhu said, even if it doesn't take 50,000 years, it can only take 10,000 years. However, the amount of vitality and energy needed to maintain little cicada's physical body in these 10,000 years is also an astronomical figure. Suddenly, Chun Huangyan's voice echoed, and he chuckled. 10,000 years of cultivation in the heaven-opening state can only be enough for you. Can the sovereign give you so much vitality and resources? Humph! Han Fei looked at Chun Huangyan coldly. If I say it's possible, it's possible. Why do you still think I'm a lowly ant? Believe it or not, I can blow you up with 3 punches. No. For a moment, the two of them were at loggerheads, as if they were born to be at odds. Okay. Xia Xiaochan said solemnly. Okay, in fact, we both know what to choose. I'm not a reincarnation. I'm still me. Xia Xiaochan looked at Xia Hongzhu. Mom, I don't want to walk on your path anymore. I want to choose my own path. Chapter 21:16. Since Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan had come to the royal family of the mermaids, he was going to seal Xia Xiaochan in the royal family. In this way, at least there would be no conflict with the royal family of the mermaid. As for whether Han Fei's words were credible in the eyes of Xia Hongzhu and the others, they would know when they sealed Xia Xiaochan. If it was really a venerable emperor, how could it be quiet? And if Han Fei did something unfavorable to Xia Xiaochan in the territory of the royal family of the mermaids, the 3 heaven-opening realms wouldn't give Han Fei a chance to leave today. The main reason was that Han Fei had no reason to do anything unfavorable to Xia Xiaochan. Since he had opened the sky, his bloodline level was not low. After all, gods were also human beings. Han Fei had already opened the sky, and the higher he went, the stronger his bloodline level would be. Besides, Han Fei was too young to covet other people's so-called divine bloodline. Besides, if what Han Fei said was true, an emperor could help Xia Xiaochan complete the recultivation in a complete sense. This would undoubtedly be of great benefit to Xia Xiaochan. Therefore, Xia Hongzhu had no reason to object. After thinking for a long time, Xia Hongzhu said, Okay. Since you said that an venerable emperor can help, then seal her in the royal family of the mermaid. I need to see the exact infinite power that can protect her for at least 10,000 years. Han Fei nodded. 10,000 years? At that time, he would rather be alive. Han Fei believed that he also had a way to protect Xia Xiaochan, and he didn't necessarily need eldest senior brother's help. When Xia Hongzhu agreed, Han Fei sighed slightly in his heart. For others, this was a very good thing. But for him and Xia Xiaochan, perhaps only they could understand their feelings. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan looked at each other. Come to me as soon as possible. Han Fei nodded. Don't worry. You're recultivating. No matter how talented you are, you can't reach the Tao faster than me. I'll come to you soon. Xia Xiaochan suddenly smiled. I'll come to you too. Xia Hongzhu said, Okay, let's not delay. Although 1 or 2 days are fine, the longer we delay, the worse it will be for you and the child. Then, Xia Hongzhu looked at Han Fei. Are you ready? Han Fei glanced at Xia Hongzhu and then at Xia Xiaochan. Wait for me. I'll be right back. After a while, in Han Fei's origin sea, it was rare for Han Fei to use the demon purification pot. This time, he needed the demon purification pot to help him forge a weapon. Because most of the resources in Han Fei's origin sea had been consumed when he returned to the origin sea, the resources from He Daoyuan's origin sea were mostly pure resources. The only thing that hadn't been destroyed was a piece of gravitational magnetism. This was the stone that had suppressed the king crab. Han Fei threw the gravitational force into the demon purification pot. With a thought, a tremendous amount of spiritual energy and chaotic energy from the origin sea surged in, followed by a large amount of yin-yang Dao. Half a day later, 2 yin-yang fish jade pendants, one black and one white, finally appeared in the origin sea. Gravitational magnetism was a material used to forge divine weapons. A rock was suppressing a giant beast, so how heavy could it be? A string of information emerged in Han Fei's eyes. Name yin-yang pendants. Introduction: a Pisces peace pendant made by the fusion of gravitational magnetism and the Tao of yin and yang. It has the ability to protect its owner. It can store a certain amount of energy to protect its owner in times of extreme danger. The two pendants attract each other and will sense each other within a certain distance. Quality: mid-quality divine weapon, attached spirit, none effect, protect its owner and store energy, recastable, unrefined. Remarks: the protective ability of the yin-yang pendant varies according to the amount of energy it can store. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. Exterminating lust was such a terrible thing. If there was no evidence, how could he acknowledge her in the future? Han Fei reached out and poured almost all the chaotic energy and immortal spiritual energy in the origin sea, as well as a large amount of spiritual energy, into it. The sea realm was full of dangers. Although the pendant said that it could only store energy for later use, she should be able to discover this secret. A day in the origin sea was only a short moment in the outside world, so it only took Han Fei half an hour to go back and forth. Because the gravitational magnetism hadn't recognized its owner yet, it was very heavy. Even though the demon purification pot had almost run out of energy, the essence was still the essence. When Han Fei held the yin-yang pendant, the seawater was trembling. Fortunately, Han Fei was a body cultivator and had already opened the sky. Otherwise, regular kings wouldn't be able to run fast with it. Xia Xiaochan asked, "What did you do?" Han Fei said, "Yes, I recognized its owner." When Han Fei took out the yin-yang pendant, Xia Xiaochan was taken aback. "This is," Han Fei said, "I'll find you later." "What if you don't recognize me?" "Don't worry, one for each of us. When the time comes, I'm not afraid that you won't recognize it. Also, I'll ask the great Emperor to leave a birthmark on your body. It'll be a double guarantee." Hearing this, Xia Xiaochan exclaimed, "Really?" Han Fei said, "He's the great Emperor." When Xia Xiaochan dripped her blood to recognize her, Xia Hongzhu, Chun Huangdian, and Li Qingdi's pupils constricted. At that moment, half of the god blood in Xia Xiaochan's body was absorbed? What was this jade pendant about? Heavenly opening. When the holy pillar of light descended, the god blood in Xia Xiaochan's body was regenerated. After more than 10 minutes, which meant that Han Fei had spent at least 3,000 years of his lifespan, Xia Xiaochan finally recognized him as her owner. As soon as it was done, Xia Xiaochan asked in shock, "A divine weapon?" Han Fei said with a smile, "You can't survive in the sea realm without a divine weapon. This jade pendant doesn't have any other use. It's equivalent to a protective talisman to ensure your safety. It will be born with you." Xia Hongzhu was deep in thought. Where did Han Fei get those divine weapons? During the War of the 100 Demons, he took out all his divine weapons and even detonated one. Did this guy know how to forge divine weapons? A moment later, in the forbidden area of the mermaid's royal family, only Xia Hongzhu, Chun Huangdian, and Li Qingdi were present. They really wanted to see what a venerable emperor could do. Han Fei looked at Xia Xiaochan one last time and secretly activated the mark of the Void Temple in his head. "Senior brother, I'm ready. I'll choose the second one." Immediately afterward, the eldest senior brother's voice appeared in Han Fei's mind. "Are you ready?" Han Fei replied, "I'm ready. However, I hope that you can leave an imprint on her. Also, I've just forged a god artifact. Can I bring it along?" Eldest senior brother, "Sure." Han Fei suddenly thought of something. "Senior brother, I heard that the sea realm is extremely vast. How can I find her?" "I'll help her join a very powerful force, but I can only do it secretly. Therefore, when the time comes, I can only give you a rough estimate." Han Fei made up his mind. A range is enough. Han Fei thought to himself, yes, it shouldn't be difficult to find Xia Shaochan with the help of the nautical panorama. Senior brother, that's enough. When Han Fei made up his mind, suddenly, the forbidden area of the mermaid's royal family began to tremble, and an indescribably terrifying pressure descended. He didn't see what power it was. But above the sky, golden chains appeared, which were clearly the divine chains of sequence that Han Fei had seen before. So many divine chains of sequence? Xia Hongzhu couldn't help but be shocked. How could someone directly resist the heavenly way? Han Fei was surprised. This time, there were much more divine chains of sequence than the one that tried to trap him. The sky was full of dense divine chains of sequence. Above the divine chains of sequence, a void storm rolled up, and a big hand slowly stretched out from there. Hist! It was the first time that Han Fei had seen his senior brother take action. The scene changed the weather within 100,000 kilometers. Humph! With a snort, the divine chains of sequence all over the sky shattered one after another. At that moment, the eye of the sky seemed to open, and Han Fei suspected that it was the eye of the heavenly way. Move! However, with a shout from his senior brother, the eye of the heavenly way disappeared and collapsed before it could condense. Xia Shaochan and even Xia Hongzhu were dumbfounded. They all wondered how powerful the person behind the martial emperor city was. Was this the power of an emperor? When a huge hand that covered the sky reached over, there seemed to be a suction force in the palm. Xia Shaochan was frozen, and a complete blue soul body flew into the sky. Han Fei, Xia Shaochan's soul was calling. She didn't want to do that, but her senior brother was already here. Han Fei shouted at the top of his voice, "Don't worry. I'll come to you. Senior, remember to leave a mark for me." Okay, eldest senior brother acted cooperatively for a while. Then, the huge hand that covered the sky slowly retracted. When her senior brother retracted his hand, a piece of dead wood fell. There was still a branch at one end of the wood with a tender bud growing. Her senior brother's voice was as bright as the sound of the heavenly way. The ancient tree of life can protect your body for 100,000 years. After it's closed, you can't open it until you reach the truth realm. Thud! When the round stake-like coffin fell to the bottom of the sea, her senior brother had already retreated. All of this happened very quickly. Shaochan only had time to shout, and it had already appeared in eldest senior brother's palm. When her senior brother retracted his palm, the divine chains of sequence instantly sealed the void storm and refused to disappear for a long time. Han Fei looked at Xia Hongzhu and the others. Their faces were pale and their bodies were shivering. They must have been soaked. They could all sense the intense vitality from the ancient tree of life. Seeing was believing. Xia Hongzhu and the others had to believe Han Fei. The wood alone was even better than a divine weapon. Xia Xiaochan's soul had left her body, or maybe part of it had fallen asleep. Anyway, she was standing there without moving at all. Solemnly, Han Fei murmured, "It's going to be a long journey. But wait for me. I'll be there soon." Xia Hongzhu was secretly relieved. Then, her eyes glittered. Can a venerable emperor resist the heavenly way? Both Chun Huangyan and Li Qing Emperor seemed to be immersed in the power just now. Han Fei stepped forward, picked up Xia Shaochan, and put her into the ancient tree of life. He said in a low voice, "I've sealed the coffin." Xia Hongzhu looked at Xia Shaochan, who was silent, and said slowly, "All right. Bring her to my palace." Then, Xia Hongzhu turned around and left. When Chun Huangyan and Li Qing Emperor were about to leave, the sound of the coffin being sealed came. Han Fei roared, "Chun Huangyan, it's time to settle the score. I'll spare your life today for your 100,000 years of hard work. But you owe me a finger." At that moment, Han Fei activated the Great Tao, opened the invincible eye, and revealed his image. The divine chains of sequence that hadn't dispersed found a target and were about to tie Han Fei up. However, Han Fei simply pointed his finger at Chun Huangyan, as if he were going to vent all the hatred he had for Xia Xiaochan's departure. Bam! A pillar of water instantly crossed the entire sky above the merfolk royal clan, like a meteor at the bottom of the sea, flashing past. End of this volume. Chapter 21:17. 5 years later. Han Fei came out of the Origin Sea. During this period, 70 to 80% of He Daoyuan's resources had been swallowed by Han Fei. His main use was to practice the void body refinement art and the void sky observation technique. Han Fei didn't rush to continue developing the Origin Sea. In the past 3 years, he didn't stay in the Origin Sea for the first 2 years, but crazily absorbed chaotic energy from the endless void. Every day, as he absorbed the chaotic qi, he used the Xian Yellow Sutra to absorb the Xian Yellow Qi. The remaining 1 year was his real cultivation time. Now, in his Origin Sea, there were as many as 500,000 strands of chaotic energy, 100,000 strands of immortal spiritual energy, and nearly 30,000 strands of demonic energy. Han Fei used these resources as basic reserves for the Sea Realm. Although he didn't know what kind of place the Sea Realm was, he believed that the heaven-opening state couldn't be everywhere. Otherwise, how strong would the Sea Realm be? He looked at his personal information. Owner Han Fei level greater than 101, sky opening, C 10,000 family tree greater than 360,201 evolving, 07764, chaotic energy, 500,000 spiritual power, 2143656 perception range 2 million kilometers, power 127, 5052 waves, first spiritual heritage, primordial vein, second spiritual heritage, vein of eternal darkness, first spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 93, second spiritual beast emperor sparrow, level 99, main art, time fishing, level 8 of void fishing, emperor level, divine quality. This information was in line with Han Fei's expectations. After entering the sky opening state, there would be a period of explosive growth, which was the so-called consolidation phase of strength. Han Fei's previous consolidation didn't completely exhaust the remaining strength when he opened the sky opening state. Now, he had spent more than 200 years consolidating his cultivation base, mainly to cultivate the void sky peering art, which made his divine soul even more condensed. Although it only increased by more than 200,000, this number was actually very terrifying, almost double that of before he opened the sky opening state. Of course, because he had only cultivated for a short period of time, in terms of power, his spirit was not stronger than some heaven-opening experts who had cultivated for tens of thousands of years. Even now, it was probably about the same as Sword God and the others, and not much stronger. However, to be able to cultivate the strength of his soul to such a level in just a few years, it could already be considered not bad. After all, he mainly relied on strength to make a living. After all, he walked the path of the body refinement school. Therefore, during this period of time, after completely consolidating his cultivation, he also increased by more than 100,000 wave. Whew! Han Fei was slightly relieved. It's time to take a walk. Thug Academy. When Han Fei appeared here after 5 years, Old Bai and the others narrowed their eyes slightly. Ren Tianfei walked out of the palace in the central holy city and sighed. You're leaving? The chaotic ocean can no longer help me improve quickly. Ren Tianfei sighed in his heart. This guy started as a fishing master, but in just a few hundred years, he had reached a level that no one could reach. Such talent naturally should not be buried in the chaotic azure sea. Ren Tianfei said, Everybody has been waiting for you to come out. I hope you hurry up, and I hope you slow down. Alright, I'll go inform them. Han Fei smiled. That's unnecessary. I know almost everything I need to know. In fact, the moment Han Fei came out of the Source Sea, the Sword God, Wang Yijian, Tai Yuan, and the others had already looked at him. Han Fei even sensed a special guy on the 100 Flowers Palace's side, Li Luoluo. Han Fei looked at the void and said lightly, "Since you haven't gone to the heaven realm, it seems that you are all waiting for me. In that case, let's go." Old Jiang scoffed. "Brat, don't you want to stay for 2 more years? It's actually not bad to live a comfortable life for 2 years after cultivation." Han Fei smiled and said, "Grandpa, have you forgotten that I have lived a comfortable life for 200 years? Life is too comfortable and people will get tired." Old Bai nodded. "That's true. After all, you have to go out sooner or later." However, Han Fei, outside the chaotic Azure Sea, it may really be the legendary boundless land. This world is too vast and too dangerous. Even if you have already opened the sky, you still have to be cautious. Han Fei clasped his fists. "Thank you for reminding me, President. I will." Swish, swish, swish. Zhang Xuanyu, Luo Xiaobai, and Lu Renquang walked out of the void one after another, and they all seemed to be ready. Then, one figure after another walked out of the void. The kings of the human race, the kings of the underwater human race, and the giant beasts only had one clone, the Tai Yuan Old Turtle and the Snail Emperor. Seeing the Snail Emperor walking slowly with a cane, Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. "Senior Snail Emperor, are you going too?" The Snail Emperor nodded slightly. "I've been thinking for a long time about whether I should go or not. It stands to reason that it's better to be conservative. However, I've lived in the chaotic Azure Sea for too long. It seems that it's time for me to stretch my body." Han Fei nodded. "Then let's go together, but the kings of each family will be with us. After all, the Pioneer Sea State is not as good as the Heaven Opening State, so if you want to leave with us, you can enter the Source Sea of the Heaven Opening State." Luo Xiaobai nodded. "During the years when you were in seclusion, we actually discussed it. Except for some new kings and Uncle Xian, the rest will all go." Han Fei couldn't help but look at Han Xian. "Uncle Xian is not going?" Han Xian nodded. "Someone has to stay here. Besides, Ener has been learning divination and array skills from me in the past few years. If they all leave, a group of venerables and a few new kings will be left behind. What if something happens?" Ener hadn't opened the sky yet, probably because she was constantly releasing her potential. Even his Neza clone had already transcended the tribulation and reached the Pioneer Sea State. Although the giant beast avatar didn't make a breakthrough, it quickly reached the advanced venerable realm. The main reason was that Han Fei's main body was too powerful. When he shared his consciousness, a massive amount of experience and insights fell on these two avatars, helping them solve many problems. Ener came with Han Xian. Seeing Han Fei, she couldn't help but say, "Brother, your avatars." Han Fei said straightforwardly, "Take them with us." This time, Han Xian didn't stop him. Han Fei had revealed some information about the outside world to him. If there were avatars, it would be convenient to leave a backup plan. Kong Shin said, "Half of the kings of the underwater human race will go, and the other half will stay." Han Fei nodded. "That's fine. With Uncle Xian here, there should be no problem." When he glanced at the crowd, he found that Mu Wuhua had appeared with a little girl. The little girl was looking at Han Fei with her head tilted. Han Fei couldn't help but smile. Did the water fairy finally transform again? However, Han Fei's smile didn't reveal much of it. He said, "Everyone here today, let me remind you that once you leave the chaotic ocean, don't mention the chaotic ocean to anyone. Even if you have to self-detonate, you will not hesitate." The kings looked solemn. They naturally knew the seriousness of this matter. If someone could search their souls, even if they didn't know the way to leave and enter the chaotic ocean, so what? But so what? They were just king tiers, so how could they know the methods of stronger experts? Hong Yu said, "Human Emperor, don't worry. We all know our limits. This journey to the east might be a great opportunity, or it might be a great disaster. Since we're prepared to go, we've already made preparations in our hearts." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Okay. Do you need to do anything in the next few days?" I don't know when you'll come back. The sword god said, the inheritances that should be left have basically been left. How many strong people can be born in this place depends on their luck. Even Zhang Xuanyu said, Fei Fei, even I have left an inheritance. I'm afraid the only one here who can leave something for the world is you, right? Hearing this, the corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. His eyes fell on the plaque of the palace in the central holy city. He casually clenched his fist, and the plaque was instantly shattered into powder. Han Fei took out a piece of chalcedony, which was ignited in the void and condensed into the shape of a plaque in the blink of an eye. Then, he drew in the void with his finger, and wisps of vast Taoist aura turned into a knife aura and carved two big words on the plaque, Taoist heart. When seeing Han Fei's two words, even Wang Yijian, who had been calm all this time, couldn't help but light up his eyes. These two words not only contained the inheritance of Knife Dao, but also carried a powerful Taoist aura. Even he felt a little dazed and touched when he saw it. If it weren't for the fact that he had to leave, Wang Yijian felt that he wanted to fight with Han Fei. The kings didn't come back to their senses for a long time. Yin-Er and the unawakened water fairy froze on the spot. They seemed to be fascinated by these two words. Han Fei took one last look at Yin-Er, and then looked hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, where Chu Jinan and Yi Xian were rushing back. Yi Xian rushed back quickly, shouting as she ran, "Wait for me." She knew that Han Fei and the others could hear her. Indeed. Han Fei looked at Zhang Xuanyu with a playful smile. Zhang Xuanyu said with a sullen face, "Wait for me for a moment." Han Fei asked, "You don't want to take her with you?" Zhang Xuanyu snorted. "Women will only affect my speed." Chapter 21:18. 3 months had passed. Swish, 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 several silhouettes stopped above a boundless sea. There was already a trace of fog here. However, this was not the fog sea. This was a place that the emperors had never been to in so many years. Han Fei said, "Everyone, if everything goes well, we can leave in 5 days. I'll explore the surroundings first." This was not the first time Han Fei had done this. Even with the nautical panorama, it was mainly dragged down by the speed of the king's snail. Therefore, Han Fei would carry out a super long-distance exploration in advance, so that they wouldn't only walk a short distance every day. Because he had mastered the Tao of time, he was not afraid of getting lost. Today was an exception. When the mist appeared, Han Fei knew that he had arrived at the place. After they were thousands of kilometers away, Han Fei shouted, "Master, are you there?" "Yes." The figure of the Beast King appeared silently from the void. Even Han Fei only felt the void tremble slightly, like the movement of a breeze. Han Fei said, "Master, I have to go to the Sea Realm. Do you have any advice?" The Beast King said leisurely, "Although I encountered a battle of emperors at the edge of the Sea Realm, I couldn't go out even though I got a chance. However, the Sea Realm is definitely dangerous, and there are many races. I've seen no less than 100 kinds. If you go, don't show off too much. If you can, try to understand the surroundings of the place where we are and find out who the guy who often attacks the chaotic Sea Realm is. When the time comes, we'll go and kill him together. Only after we destroy that person can the chaotic Sea Realm be safe. Otherwise, I'll have to stay here." Han Fei nodded solemnly. "Understood. This will be the first thing I'll do after I go to the Sea Realm." 3 days later, when Han Fei and the others completely entered a foggy sea, led by Han Fei, they finally saw an alternate space that looked like a dark barrier. Tai Yuan sighed. "I didn't expect that we are just living in a world." Wang Yijian nodded. "I've guessed that behind this darkness, there should be a stronger path of swordsmanship." Han Fei said, "Everyone, there is no turning back now. What lies ahead is a great world, a potentially extremely huge world." Kong Shin said, "Instead of being trapped in a cage, it's better to perish in the great world. Since we're here, we should do it in one go." Han Fei nodded slightly. In that case, all kings enter the origin sea. Even sword cultivators could enter the sword palace. Most of those who entered Han Fei's origin sea were the masters of the original 36 profound heavens. The others didn't mind, but Han Fei had Li Luoluo, who they were not familiar with. As for Luo Xiaobai and the others, because they saw Li Luoluo here, they were even more wary of her. Luo Xiaobai said telepathically, "When we go to the outside world, we have to ask all the kings to erase their memories of the past 3 months." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Let's go." Bang, bang, bang. This barrier of darkness did not have the significance of a barrier. It was just pure darkness, more like a path leading to light. After they entered the darkness, they immediately felt a slight suction force that seemed to be dragging them out. Even without the nautical panorama, they could most likely leave the chaotic azure sea with this suction force. When they first entered this darkness, the only feeling Han Fei and the other emperors felt was cold. This kind of coldness was not as simple as cold itself, but seemed to contain the power of the Great Way. The Sword God said, "This kind of coldness requires one's mind to resist. Venerables can't survive here at all." Tai Yuan nodded. "Yes, it's already so dangerous before we go out. Everyone, get ready." Half a day later. Swish, swish, swish in a pitch-black and icy sea, there were some light gray cloud-like currents all year round. 6 figures walked out of a large gray mist in a row. The moment Han Fei came out, he scanned the surroundings with his perception. There was a gray area of more than 1,000,000 kilometers around him, like a turbid sea current, without a single creature. And there seemed to be a problem above his head. When his perception reached the sky, it was frozen and almost shattered. Besides, at least in this gray turbid current, Han Fei and the others didn't perceive a single creature. When they saw that their perception didn't detect any creatures, their second reaction was to look back. But they seemed to have appeared out of thin air, and they couldn't find the way they came from, nor were there any space nodes to travel through. Han Fei took out the nautical panorama and pointed it in the direction of the sea realm. But this time, the nautical panorama didn't move. The emperors couldn't help but take a breath. Kong Shin said, "This is already the sea realm." However, the snail emperor laughed loudly. His body suddenly became strong, and in the blink of an eye, he became a muscular man from his old appearance. Many parts of his body bulged, and he said, "This is the sea realm. I feel that my power can be released, and there is no longer the suppression of the heavenly Tao. Finally, we don't have to walk so slowly anymore. This is definitely the sea realm." They all relaxed their brows, but Han Fei thought that the sea realm shouldn't be like this. He said, "There's no need to choose a direction. Just find a random direction and walk around." Everyone nodded. Everything here was unknown, so they could only test it out. However, when they flew for about 1,000,000 kilometers, their eyes all lit up, because they could already perceive the outside. Here, except for the problem of the space above, their perception was not restricted. After a minute, they left the turbid current vigilantly. And in front of them was a shocking scene. This place, this sea, seemed to be a vast world of ice mountains at the bottom of the sea. At the bottom of the sea, the ice was like cotton, stacked together like huge cotton candy hundreds to thousands of kilometers high. Among the many irregular, cotton-like ice bodies, there were some gaps, and in the gaps was a flawless and pure ice blue, like pure sapphire. "Who?" Han Fei was surprised to find that when he tried to spread out his perception, it seemed to be corroded by some kind of power. The Sword God suddenly said, "You can't release your perception all the time. Although the seawater here is not very cold, there is an invisible power that keeps melting your perception." Tai Yuan said, "I'm afraid it's because of the rules of heaven and earth here. If you release your perception for a long time, your perception will be frozen and can't be taken back at all." The Snail Emperor said, "Let's see." The emperors released their perception from 1,000,000 kilometers to 100,000 kilometers, and finally to 10,000 kilometers. Soon, Han Fei said, "It's best to release your perception within 50,000 kilometers, so that if your perception is frozen, you can take it back in time." Han Fei said, "But even so, it's best not to release your perception for more than 10 minutes. Everyone looked at Han Fei in surprise, and Wang Yijian said stiffly, "I can release it for about 10 minutes. Any longer and it won't be easy to take it back." Tai Yuan said, "I can release it for about 10 minutes. The reason why everyone was surprised was that Han Fei could continuously release his perception for 10 minutes and could take it back calmly, which made them realize that Han Fei's soul power seemed to be not weaker than theirs at all, and even slightly stronger. It was hard to imagine that Han Fei's soul power was also so strong when he was a body refiner. The sword god said, "But it's best to maintain it for about 10,000 kilometers, so that you can retract and release it in a cycle, and you can even see through it with your eyes. The only thing you can't see through is above." They had already discovered that since it was a sea, there must be a sea surface. Now they couldn't perceive the sea surface at all. Once their perception touched the sea surface, it would be instantly frozen and they couldn't take it back at all. Han Fei cast the Gemini Divine Technique, quickly broke through the air, pierced the sea surface with one finger, and rushed up with a swish. As the saying goes, those who are skilled are bold. The Gemini Divine Technique was absolutely a divine technique when used for adventure. It was only a few hundred kilometers, so Han Fei crossed it in a flash. But the moment he appeared on the sea surface, he felt a terrifying cold force, which directly froze his entire black mist body. Even if he burst out the qi and blood in his body, he could only resist for less than 10 minutes. And during these 5 minutes, Han Fei couldn't release his perception at all, because if he released his perception here, he might be frozen to pieces before he could even penetrate half a meter. As far as Han Fei could see, there was only darkness above his head. He felt that half of his foot was on the land and half of his hand had touched the sea of stars. The sky was black, densely dotted with stars. Around him was a vast expanse of white glaciers, crystal clear like 10,000-year-old ice marrow, and there was not a single creature to be seen. This reminded Han Fei of a term, Ice Age. Han Fei's black mist body finally couldn't bear it anymore, and the ice cave that had just been pierced under him had basically been refrozen at this moment, leaving a new, huge icicle. At this time, Han Fei couldn't help but grunt and cast the Heavenly Awakening Divine Technique backhandedly. The Sword God and the others couldn't help but look solemn. From breaking the ice to repairing the ice cave, the time was too short. Han Fei was an emperor, and the power of his finger was enhanced by the Taoist sense. If he was in the chaotic sea, the power of this finger would probably remain for thousands of years. However, here, it only remained for a few minutes before it was melted as if it had never existed. Han Fei took a breath. The sea surface is not suitable for survival at all. The heaven-opening divine technique can't resist it at all. The emperors couldn't help but gasp. Was the sea realm so abnormal? The heaven-opening divine technique couldn't even adapt to the environment of the sea realm? Chapter 21:19. Let's go. Han Fei recovered and let out a long breath. Maybe it's just because this place is too special. We'd better find an intelligent creature to see what this place is. Han Fei had a rough idea that this should be a wasteland area. However, if even a wasteland area was so terrifying, how terrifying would the outside world be? The icebergs here were extremely wide, often thousands of kilometers underwater. The depth of the ocean was also extremely deep, completely beyond the scope of Han Fei and the others' understanding. 10,000 kilometers deep was actually normal. There was no need to think about what was above the ice layer. It was a place where no living person could enter. The power of ice here was worlds apart from that at the bottom of the sea. It was hard to imagine what kind of power could cause such a huge temperature difference. They kept shuttling through the cracks of the ice sea and didn't really leave the area covered by the icebergs until they were more than 5,000 kilometers below the sea. Because there was no direction, Han Fei had to use the nautical panorama again to find the nearest intelligent creature. This time, the nautical panorama lived up to everyone's expectations and soon chose a direction. Because the speed limit of the Emperor snail was gone, they moved extremely fast, jumping millions of kilometers in a moment. When the nautical panorama's pointing ability disappeared, they had already jumped 8 million kilometers. This was because Han Fei and the others didn't dare to move at full speed to check if there were any dangers around them. When the nautical panorama's pointing ability was used for the last time, they had just traveled more than 5 million kilometers when they all suddenly stopped, because they encountered the first creature in the sea realm. Although that creature was a strange fish with a black face and fangs, its strength had reached the venerable realm. When it saw Han Fei and the others, it immediately knew to run. How could Han Fei and the others let it do as it wished? Any creature from the outside world that could appear here must have some intelligence. There was not much difference between searching the soul of a fish and searching the soul of a person. Hum Wang Yijian had already slashed out with his sword, but his sword chi was too fierce. Han Fei shouted, "Wait, don't be cut by it." Wang Yijian's sword turned, and Han Fei took the opportunity to leap over with a golden light. When he was close to the fish, Han Fei saw at a glance that its strength had reached the advanced venerable realm. Seeing this strength, Han Fei was shocked. Damn, it's just a fish. Is its level so high? Humph. Han Fei's pressure descended, thinking that he could directly shock the strange fish and make it unable to move. However, this strange fish emitted a lot of filthy air and ignored Han Fei's pressure. How is this possible? Tai Yuan's expression was grave. How could a mere venerable realm creature resist the pressure of a heaven-opening realm cultivator? Han Fei stomped his foot and a trapping array appeared. The strange fish crashed into it, but it couldn't break out and was easily trapped in the array by Han Fei. The strange fish turned into a tide of fish and tried to break the array. Of course, this was impossible. It was just that it could still move freely under Han Fei's coercion, which shocked Han Fei and the others. In Han Fei's eyes, information emerged. Name: Canine Fong Black Snapper, Dirty. Introduction: a marine creature that has been polluted by ominous tidal wave. Its consciousness is chaotic and it is bloodthirsty. It evolves by devouring other polluted marine creatures. The canine Fong Black Snapper had an astonishing bite force. Level: 87 Equality. Normal Realm, High Level Venerable 77 Wisps of Turbid Chaotic Aura, Battle Skills. Fong Lust, Night Charge. Collectible Pure Energy Crystal Absorbable, Unabsorbable Remarks, it's contaminated with ominous creatures. Don't touch it easily. Contaminated with ominous creatures? While Han Fei was muttering, Tai Yuan and the others also gathered around. The Sword God said, "I'm afraid that this creature's intelligence is chaotic. Otherwise, it would be impossible for it to move freely under the pressure of an emperor. Besides, look, this fish is steaming with gray-black filthy air. I wonder what it is." Han Fei nodded. "It's a pity. I wanted to search its soul, but I don't think it's possible now." Tai Yuan nodded. "There's no hurry. Since a creature has appeared, it means that we are close to the place where creatures live. Let's walk around. There should be more than one way." Kong Shen cast a projection, whose strength was only at the venerable realm. He was very bold and reached out to grab this big fish. He crushed the canine Fong Black Snapper, but immediately after, he saw that the projection was contaminated by a foul chi. Kong Shen didn't deliberately resist it. He just wanted to see what this black mist was. But when the filth penetrated the projection's body, Kong Shen waved his hand and cut off the connection with the projection. The next moment, the projection uncontrollably attacked the array crazily. Kong Shen said, "Don't stain that black mist. It's similar to soul poison, but it's not just soul poison." Once you're contaminated, you'll quickly get lost. Just now, that thing tried to penetrate into my soul. Fortunately, I blocked it. At present, it seems that people in the heaven-opening state can actively avoid this power of pollution. Tai Yuan said, I don't know why, but I have a feeling that this is not a good place. Everyone was speechless. Did you just find out? As soon as we came out, I felt something was wrong. Han Fei thought that Kong Shin's power was too strong just now. He might have crushed the pure energy crystal, so he couldn't see anything now. Although this canine Fong black snapper had died, a large amount of filthy air was still being released. However, after the filthy air dispersed in the seawater for more than 10 seconds, it would slowly melt. The sword god said, It seems that this sea area is also very extraordinary. This filthy air is directly purified by the seawater. Suddenly, the Emperor Snail said, Well, do you want to study it for a long time? It seems that a large school of this fish is coming. Knowing that in this sea area, their perception would be frozen if they released it for too long, they all maintained a perception intensity of about 10,000 kilometers, which was the kind that could be expanded and contracted. Reminded by the Emperor Snail, they all released their perception, only to find that more than 200,000 kilometers away, a group of about 1,000 canine Fong black snappers were rushing here. This group of canine Fong black snappers rushed over, but they were not aiming at them. With their strength, they were far from being able to perceive their existence. Follow them and see where they're going. A group of venerable canine Fong black snappers was naturally not fast, and they followed them for about 4 hours. After about 2 hours, they sensed that there were more and more creatures around them. The first thing that appeared in their vision was a large swarm of black-gray jellyfish. The flesh of these jellyfish was black, but their bodies were covered with large pieces of grayish-white fluff. Like the canine Fong black snappers, their bodies were also emitting filthy smoke. The canine Fong black snappers launched a charge when they were 10,000 kilometers away from these filthy jellyfish. At first, Han Fei and the others felt that this was like a wolf entering a flock of sheep, and they would definitely win. But in fact, the result surprised them. When those jellyfish found the canine Fong black snappers, they all rushed over with their tentacles straight like spears. Puff, 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 creak. A large number of jellyfishes were torn into countless pieces by the impact. However, many canine Fong black snappers were penetrated, and their bodies began to dry and mold at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a round of impact, nearly half of the canine Fong black snappers were killed, and almost 50% of the filthy jellyfish were lost. However, this 50% was estimated to be around 5,000 to 6,000. In the eyes of Han Fei and the others, the filthy black mist was being devoured crazily. All the canine Fong black snappers and jellyfish that swallowed the black mist were improving crazily. Han Fei and the others were dumbfounded. How could these creatures improve so casually? Could they improve by a major realm so casually? The Snail Empress said, No, the black mist is a kind of energy for them. Their strength only increases or decreases according to the amount of energy, which is not their real realm. Perhaps this is how this sea region becomes stronger. Han Fei said, I don't think it's right. If it's this degree of rapid growth, a powerful creature will soon be born among them. Among the canine Fong black snappers, there was a huge canine Fong black snapper that had obviously swallowed a lot of filthy gas and was rapidly becoming stronger. Those jellyfish were eaten by it one bite at a time. When there were less than 20% of the canine Fong black snappers left, finally, under the leadership of the canine Fong black snapper, all the jellyfish in this area were killed. The largest canine Fong black snapper spat out tens of thousands of black fish eggs. When these fish eggs appeared, the surrounding filthy gas was quickly swallowed, and the canine Fong black snappers grew rapidly at an unimaginable speed. In the blink of an eye, they completed the process of being born and becoming law enforcers. And the canine Fong black snapper leader, which had already reached the half-king realm, dropped to the peak of an advanced venerable in the blink of an eye. Then, they continued to search in the water unhurriedly, as if looking for their next target. At this moment, Han Fei suddenly sensed something and enlarged his perception. He saw 5 young men and women rushing towards this place. Tai Yuan and the others couldn't help but be surprised. Human beings? Chapter 21:20. Han Fei and the others never thought that they would encounter humans here. They thought that the outside world was so big that it might be the world of tens of thousands of races, and humans were only one of them. How could it be so easy to encounter them? However, the reality was that they encountered humans as soon as they came out of the chaotic Azure Sea. But Han Fei quickly reacted. Not all of them. There are humanoids. Among the 5 young men and women, there were 2 men with scales on their bodies. At first, Han Fei thought they were battle suits, but when he saw a trace of spiritual energy flowing on those scales, he immediately judged that they should only be humanoid creatures. Wang Yijin said, "They are hunting this school of fish." In the eyes of Wang Yijin and the others, the canine Fong black snappers were not worth hunting at all. They were too dirty and harmful to the soul. Besides, they didn't think that just 5 young men could hunt these canine Fong black snappers. Even if the tens of thousands of canine Fong black snappers were only law enforcers, there were still nearly 100 adult canine Fong black snappers, most of which were venerables. But since these people came, it meant that they were confident, so Han Fei and the others were not in a hurry. In any case, it was a good thing that they had discovered the existence of humans. It wouldn't be too late for them to take action when these people were defeated. On the other side, the woman in the lead had reached the peak-level venerable, and the other 4 were all advanced venerables. The woman shouted, "Clean stone water lightning, get ready." Swish, 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 each of the 5 people held a white jade flashing with electric arcs in their hands. The woman in the lead instantly broke out her extreme speed, cut through the sea in an instant, and rushed towards the school of canine Fong black snappers. Seeing this, the leading canine Fong black snappers made a hissing sound, and nearly 100 adult canine Fong black snappers rushed forward, forming a black fish wall. Swish! The woman's body twisted in the air, which made Han Fei's eyes light up. It turned out to be a kind of spatial secret technique similar to the star's shift. In the blink of an eye, the woman moved behind this school of canine Fong black snappers, where there were tens of thousands of small canine Fong black snappers. As the woman threw out the stone flashing with electric arcs, sizzle lightning flashed, and a large area of interconnected lightning arcs exploded. The tens of thousands of canine Fong black snappers let out a sizzling sound, like bubbles. Everything that was touched by the lightning arcs exploded and turned into smoke. However, large pieces of thumb-sized crystals were left in the smoke. With just this strike, almost 90% of the tens of thousands of Hound Fong black snappers were annihilated. After all, what could a group of law enforcers do before an Exalt Realm expert? But this kind of efficient attack did make the others' eyes light up. Tai Yuan glanced at Han Fei and said, "There is a very pure power in the milky white electric arc. These creatures seem to have been purified." Tai Yuan meant that if Han Fei used the apocalyptic divine art here, it would probably be equivalent to a powerful weapon. After the woman made her move, a young man had already met her head-on. He also threw out an electric arc weapon, but in front of him, a dozen charging shadows suddenly erupted. This was the talent ability of the Hound Fong Black Snappers, Night Charge. Under the effect of this talent ability, it was as if 1,000 fish were charging at the same time. Swish, 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 the charging Hound Fong Black Snappers were purified in the blink of an eye, leaving fist-sized crystals. The 5 people's faces changed, and the woman shouted, "Not good, this Hound Fong Black Snapper seems to have developed some spiritual consciousness, and its instinctive reaction is stronger. We must kill it quickly." A man controlled the seawater and turned it into countless icicles. Another woman made a fist seal, trying to break the fish wall in one fell swoop. However, in her fist seal, there was a clear stone water thunder. This was obviously discovered by the leading Hound Fong Black Snapper, and another 5 or 6 venerable Hound Fong Black Snappers rushed in front of it, and the leader of the Hound Fong Black Snappers, hiding behind them, opened his mouth and inhaled fiercely. The other Hound Fong Black Snappers around him emitted a thick black mist, which was inhaled by the Hound Fong Black Snapper. It was about to break through again and return to the Half-King realm. The leading woman on the human side shouted, "Don't save it. Use both at once." With that, the woman attacked from behind. A bright blade aura burst out, as if she wanted to cut the fish wall open. However, the school of Hound Fong Black Snappers formed a sphere and enveloped the leading Hound Fong Black Snapper. Bang bang, the explosion of the 2 clear stone water thunder purified almost 40 venerable Hound Fong Black Snappers, and there were only slightly more than 30 left. However, the 5 people didn't look happy at all, because the leading Hound Fong Black Snapper had returned to the Half-King realm. At that moment, the leading woman on the human side shouted, "Help me keep an eye on my brother. Yilan, don't be impulsive. If worse comes to worst, we can just give up this battle." However, the woman didn't waver. She held her blade and slashed forward. Seeing that the Hound Fong Black Snappers were charging at her, she threw a punch and the long blade bounced out. When it came into contact with a Hound Fong Black Snapper, it exploded. Taking advantage of the moment of the explosion, the woman used void diversion and appeared in front of the leader of the Hound Fong Black Snappers. When the black fog came at her, she took out another clear stone water thunder. But coincidentally, the explosion caused the Hound Fong Black Snappers to charge recklessly. Before she could detonate the clear stone water thunder, she was knocked away by a Hound Fong Black Snapper. The clear stone water thunder in her hand missed its target and only killed 3 ordinary Hound Fong Black Snappers. The leader of the Hound Fong Black Snappers was naturally furious. He could have created an army of tens of thousands, but this woman destroyed 99% of them. He opened his sharp teeth and unleashed the speed of a Half-King realm, as if he was going to eat the human woman on the spot. Sister Lan, Yi Lan, banged just when the woman felt that she was going to die and was about to activate all the power in her body to self-destruct. A stranger suddenly appeared in front of her. Bang bang bang, the remaining 20 to 30 Hound Fong Black Snappers were almost instantly blown to pieces. "Watch out!" The woman didn't know who saved her, but seeing the black fog coming at her, she immediately warned him. However, the man in front of her pointed his finger, and holy light burst out, purifying all the black fog in an instant. Han Fei slowly turned his head and looked at Yilan. "How dare you hunt so many Hound Fong Black Snappers with just 5 people? Are you crazy?" Yilan and the others looked at Han Fei in surprise. They were surprised at first, then vigilant, and finally saluted. "I'm Yilan, the captain of the Scavenger 8091 Sea Hunting Team. Nice to meet you, Master Scavenger. Thank you for saving my life." "Okay." Han Fei frowned. "Have I been identified as a scavenger? According to this woman, this is the Sea Area 8091. What does that mean? Does it mean that there are more than 8,000 of such sea areas?" Behind Han Fei, Tai Yuan and the others arrived one after another. However, they all hid their strength and slightly revealed a little bit of pressure, which happened to be the strength of someone who had just entered the sea expansion realm. Seeing that Han Fei hid his strength, Tai Yuan and the others also hid their strength. After all, it was not necessarily a good thing to show off too much when they had just arrived. When Yilan and the others saw this, they were all scavengers in the sea expansion realm. It seemed that this was also a powerful scavenger team. Seeing that Yilan was still paying attention to those energy crystals while talking, Han Fei immediately stretched out his hand and grabbed one from the void. In his eyes, information emerged. Name: Energy Crystal Introduction, the only pure energy crystal core in the body of an unknown life. It contains a small amount of chaotic energy, a small amount of vitality, a small amount of ownerless souls, and a large amount of spiritual energy, which can be used for cultivation. Level Venerable Quality Average contains chaotic energy 8 wisps, contains ownerless souls greater than 102 points, contains spiritual energy greater than 110,234 points, absorbable, remarks an ordinary venerable crystal, which can be used for basic cultivation. Han Fei took a look and found that this thing was actually not bad. With this thing in the chaotic ocean, many people's cultivation would be very fast. The moment Han Fei grabbed the crystal, Han Fei sensed that Yilan and the others' hearts were beating faster, and their breaths were slightly short. Obviously, they were afraid that Han Fei and the others would take these energy crystals away. Han Fei casually threw this energy crystal to Yilan. "Me. You can keep these things for yourself." Phew. Hearing that Han Fei didn't want them, they secretly breathed a sigh of relief and immediately put away a large number of energy crystals. It had to be said that these people had used a small advantage to gain a big advantage. It could be said that they had gained quite a lot. Han Fei pointed to Yilan and said, "Come here. There are some things we want to ask you in private." "Sister Lan." Among the remaining people, the woman couldn't help calling out, very worried about Yilan's safety. Han Fei didn't care. They didn't know much about this place, so he had to ask someone. Yilan signaled the woman to be silent. She walked respectfully to Han Fei and the others and couldn't help but take a deep breath. She bowed to Han Fei and the others and then said solemnly, "Yilan greets the lords. May I know what the lords have to ask me? Yilan will tell you everything I know." Han Fei nodded and said, "First of all, tell me, what is this place? Scavenger 8091, what is this area? What's going on with these sea creatures that are emitting black gas?" Hiss. Suddenly, Yilan looked at Han Fei and the others, and her head exploded. These people knew nothing about the chaotic wasteland? Weren't they scavengers? Then, where did they come from? Chapter 21:21. Han Fei was not worried that Yilan would expose her confusion because after this interrogation, he would naturally erase that part of Yilan's memory. At this moment, Yilan was terrified. Since Han Fei and the others asked this question, there could only be two possible identities. One was an outsider. He might have come from the Shindu dynasty, or he might have come from places like the Fist Radiance Mountain. He might have barged in by mistake. Because if they hadn't barged in by mistake, it was impossible for them not to know where they were. The other possibility was even more terrifying. They might have come from a primitive graveyard. However, what shocked Yilan was that the primitive cemetery could produce so many experts at once. Was that still the primitive cemetery? Most importantly, these people seemed to be humans. Although he couldn't see through them, if they were in human form, then they were too perfect. Looking at the temperament of these people again, it seemed that they were indeed different from the scavengers, especially the one with the sword on his back. No matter how he looked at it, he did not look like a simple person. He heard Yilan say, reporting to Darren, "Our entire region is known as the Chaotic Wasteland. It is the most remote and dangerous place under the rule of the Divine Capital Dynasty of the Eastern Sea Divine Prefecture of the Sea Realm. It is also known as the Ominous Land." "Sure enough, this is the right place. Go on. Tell me as much as you can. You should know how much I want to hear." Yilan did not dare to disobey, but she could not help asking, "My lord, outside of the primal chaos wasteland, I only have a rough idea. It was all said by others. I am not too sure about the specifics. The only place I'm familiar with is Scavenger 8091. Han Fei said indifferently, "Speak as much as you can." Yilan thought to herself. This seemed to confirm her suspicions. These people didn't seem to care that she knew their true origins. Could it be that they were preparing to silence her? Unfortunately, he couldn't disobey them at this time. He could only hope that these people were also humans and wouldn't attack him. He heard Yilan said, "Darren. As far as I know, the Sea Realm is divided into 5 divine provinces. Other than the East, West, South, and North Divine Provinces, there is also the Middle Sea Divine Province. We are in the Divine Prefecture of the Eastern Sea. The immortal capital dynasty and the heavenly tribe are the strongest forces. Among them, the powerful and famous ones are the fairy capital dynasty, the door to heaven, the Fist Radiance Mountain, the Eastern Sword Pavilion, the Ghost Strait, the boundless mining area, the Sinkhole World, and our chaotic wasteland. When Yilan introduced the Eastern Sword Pavilion, Sword God and Wang Yijian narrowed their eyes. Sword cultivators were only interested in sword. Therefore, they knew where they were going as soon as they heard the name Dongfang Jianga. In Han Fei's mind, the old turtle's voice sounded, "There's another place called the Demon God Ocean." When the old turtle spoke, the sword god and the others all looked at Han Fei. Han Fei's face darkened, and his consciousness fell on the Soul Sea. Old Yuan, you're AF * King Soul now. Don't you know that? I'm surrounded by emperors. If it weren't for the fact that my soul is powerful, they would have heard what you said. I know you have something to say now, but don't panic. Since you're out, I'll have plenty of time for you to say it later. Sure enough, the old man couldn't help but say, Han Fei, the human heart is sinister. That restless soul in your body shouldn't be a threat to you, right? Han Fei responded, of course not. At this time, Yilan continued, our chaotic wasteland is said to be a place where gods once fought. There are a large number of primitive tombs here, which are the starting grounds that have been excavated. Tian Yuan interjected, what is a starting ground? Yilan's heart turned cold. These people really came from the primitive tombs. Han Fei secretly said to them, our chaotic sea belongs to a starting ground, and the starting ground that has been attacked and cleaned by strong masters is called a primitive cemetery. Senior Taiyuan, let me ask the question. Taiyuan's words were tantamount to admitting their origins. Although Yilan might have already guessed their origins, it was not good to be confirmed by Taiyuan's words. Taiyuan nodded calmly. Yes, I was too rash. Then Yilan continued with an uneasy mood. Perhaps because of the aftermath of the War of Gods, the chaotic wasteland is densely covered with ominous fog, so that the marine creatures here are almost contaminated with ominous fog. Ordinary people's souls will be eroded when they touch it, and they will go crazy and only want to swallow the ominous fog. They have no consciousness. But fortunately, there will be pure crystals in the bodies of these ominous creatures, which are their life crystals, and they will not be contaminated. Han Fei keenly grasped a question. Why does that fish have consciousness and can organize a defense? Yilan explained, a small number of creatures contaminated by ominous fog will develop some intelligence, but it will not be very high. More often, it is the instinctive behavior of marine creatures, such as the dog Fong Black Snapper just now. In fact, they will form a leader and sacrifice themselves to protect the leader. This is normal behavior. If you really want to develop simple intelligence, you have to at least reach the sea expansion stage, but it is not very high. Han Fei nodded slightly. Okay. Go on. Yilan continued. For everyone living in the wasteland, the sea is an unreachable place. No one can return from the sea alive. As for the specific reason, I don't know. Masters, don't go there rashly. Han Fei thought to himself, I've already been there, but he certainly wouldn't tell Yilan, so he just nodded slightly. Yilan continued, in the chaotic wasteland, there are three main forces, namely, the City of Scavengers, the City of Wanderers, and the City of Primordial. Among them, the City of Primordial is a very old city in the chaotic wasteland. I don't know when it was founded. And the City of Scavengers was formed after the War of Gods, when there were too many primitive tombs here. A large number of sea realm masters came to scavenge. As for the City of Wanderers, because the chaotic wasteland is remote and extremely dangerous, it is liked by some wanderers, so they built the city here. These three cities all have venerable sovereigns, and more than one of them. Han Fei asked, tell me about the City of Scavengers. Yilan nodded. Scavenger City controls 13,000 regions. This place belongs to Scavenger 8091C region. I'm not too sure about the size, but if you want to go from one region to another, you'll need to be at least at the Sea Expansion realm. It's very difficult for a Venerable to go from one domain to another alone. Han Fei asked, "Do you have a sea map?" Yilan shook her head. A sea map is so precious that even our village leader may not have it. At most, we have a sea map of the territory of Mountain City, where we are located. Mountain City is a small city that governs nearly 100 of our villages, and it is guarded by a heaven-opening realm lord. Oh? A heaven-opening realm master governs more than 100 villages? How many people are there in your village? Yilan explained, "Our village has more than 300,000 people. It is said that the higher the ranking, the larger the population base, and the more strong masters there are." Han Fei nodded. "Are they all humans and humanoids?" Yilan shook her head. "There are also some other races, but humans account for the majority, about 60%. Han Fei asked, "Do you know the history of the human race?" Yilan shook her head. "This, maybe only the village leader knows." Han Fei asked, "Then you've been cultivating by killing these ominous sea creatures? Although this is a wasteland, the spiritual energy here is not weak. Why do you have to take such a big risk to hunt these ominous creatures?" Yilan shook her head slightly. "Our cultivation conditions are relatively difficult, and it's difficult for us to have enough resources for cultivation. Most of the resources are actually handed over. Not only our village, but also other villages." "Oh? You can get a lot of resources? Do you have to hand them over?" Yilan shook her head again. "Actually, very few. In addition to cultivating, we usually mine, and when we have a little leisure time, we have to go out to hunt. The rise and fall of a village requires the joint efforts of many people. In the chaotic wasteland, every once in a while, usually about 100 years, there will be a tidal wave. We need to dig out clean stones and build a defensive array to resist the tidal wave. Only in this way can we survive, and then we can talk about cultivation and growth. However, we can't dig enough clean stones. Besides, every 10 years the Lord will send tax envoys to collect clean stones and some resources, so we have to work hard to survive. So we have to go out to hunt and grow up quickly." Han Fei couldn't help but be moved. It sounded like their lives were even more miserable than those in the chaotic ocean. If they lived like this for tens of thousands of years, many people would probably collapse, wouldn't they? These people were not strong enough. First of all, they couldn't walk out of the chaotic wasteland at all. Even if they could expand their seas, the resources consumed might be the burden of many people's hope. Their lives might not be very good. Although Han Fei knew that Yilan was deliberately pretending to be pitiful, he guessed that she was afraid that he would kill her. Han Fei said again, "Okay, one last question. Have you heard of the Yin family?" Han Fei didn't expect Yilan to know the existence of the Yin family. In fact, as he expected, Yilan shook her head blankly. Obviously, with Yilan's strength, what she knew was limited. Han Fei said, "I'm going to cut off this part of your memory. Don't resist." When Yilan heard that it was just cutting off her memory, her tense nerves were immediately relaxed. She would rather not remember anything. Sometimes, knowing too much was a sin in itself. Chapter 21-22. Han Fei just glanced at Yilan, entered Yilan's sea of consciousness, and cut off this part of the memory. At the same time, he also completely annihilated this part of the memory with the time reversal technique. Yilan was dazed for a moment, completely forgetting what had just happened. She thought she had just been called over by Han Fei, so she cupped her hands and said to Han Fei and the others again, "Greetings, masters. I wonder what you want to ask me. Yilan will tell you everything I know." Han Fei thought he had to ask something, so he asked casually, "Have any scavengers stayed in your village recently?" Yilan secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that these people were not here to make trouble, so she immediately said respectfully, Master, in the past 100 years, there have been a total of 6 scavengers in our scavenger 8091 area. The last time should be more than 20 years ago. Han Fei nodded slightly. In addition, have there been any big movements near C8091 in the past hundreds of years? Yilan said, there have been 2 tidal waves in the past 300 years, and there are signs of the 3rd tidal wave because the number of ominous creatures around has begun to increase. Masters, you may need to go to Mountain City as soon as possible. In addition, more than 200 years ago, there was a violent earthquake near C8091, which caused an iceberg to collapse once and a cold wave broke out. Other than that, there are no other major events. Han Fei nodded. The tidal wave may break out at any time. It is too far to go to Mountain City. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble on the way, we need to go to your village 8091 to rest for a few days. Lead the way. Yilan was taken aback for a moment, but this time she really didn't think too much about it. When the tidal wave came, not to mention ordinary scavengers, even Lord-level powerhouses couldn't go out at will. Once hit by the continuous tidal waves and ominous creatures, it was not uncommon for lords to die, and it happened more than once. So, Yilan said respectfully, Lord Scavengers, please follow me. Han Fei said to Tai Yuan and the others, we'd better make our appearance a little bit more, so that we look more like scavengers. Also, Wang Yijin, you'd better put away the sword on your back. It's too high profile. These venerables are ignorant, but it doesn't mean that the people in their village are ignorant. The floating sword on Wang Yijin's back instantly disappeared into his body. They already had a little understanding of this place. Wang Yijin said, we have to get a sea map of this place as soon as possible so that we can leave. What he meant was that they had to get a sea map as soon as possible so that they could go to the Eastern Sword Pavilion. Tai Yuan said, don't be too hasty. After we arrive at that village, we can see how strong the village leader is. At that time, he would need a small-scale sea map to understand the surroundings. At the very least, he would need to know the route to that mountain city. I don't think this small village has a sea map of the sea. The Snail Empress. I'm a bit interested in that tidal wave. From what this girl said, it seems like the tidal wave is the main reason why these creatures are infected. For them to be so fearful, how could there be no secrets behind it? At Yuan village, at family of Chen, at Shaoan time at Lan, time at the Fei at. Logically speaking, how could a small village resist them? However, it seemed that as long as they dug, they could build a defensive array to resist the tidal waves, which was a bit interesting. Anyway, the tidal waves were coming, so they might as well take a look first. On the other side, when Yilan returned to her team, she couldn't help but secretly let out a sigh of relief. Her 4 teammates immediately surrounded her. Sister Lan, what's going on? Did they? Yilan gave the man a look, motioning him not to speak. If a sea expansion expert wanted to hear what they were saying, it would be extremely easy. Yilan was afraid that they would make Han Fei and the others unhappy, and then they would all be finished. Since they wanted to go to the village with her, it was a good thing. At least in the village, they didn't have to be too afraid of the village leader. As long as the 2 sides were at peace, they could stay as long as they wanted. If the tidal waves really came in advance, they might have a few more powerful helpers. After all, these people were all pioneer Sea Realm powerhouses. It was a pity that Yilan couldn't see the strength of the Han Fei and the others at all. Otherwise, if she knew that they were all Lord-level powerhouses, she might be scared to death. The small village in Scavenger 8091 was called Little Sea Village, which was attached to a mountain range. When the Han Fei and the others arrived here, they scanned with their perception and found that many tunnels and caves had been dug out in the depths of the mountain. Clearly, this was a vein of ore. Most of the ores were milky white stones that looked like nephrite. However, the stones that were dug out weren't pure, so there was a special container in the Little Sea Village that was used to refine these white jade stones. There were all sorts of enchantments placed on top of it. Judging from the level of the arrays, it should not be difficult, but the way the arrays were engraved was a bit weird. It was unknown if it was because of the tidal wave, but most of the buildings in the little sea village were made of this kind of white jade. Perhaps these people wanted to prevent the tidal wave from breaking through the formation. Their houses might be able to withstand it for a while. It was understandable to have this idea, but even the large arrays had been broken, so the possibility of a house blocking the tidal waves was not very high. The Snail Emperor said, "The associated ores of those white jade mines have a strong anti-shock ability and are very difficult to excavate. Some areas can only be excavated by at least Venerable Realm experts. Most people can only excavate in places with few associated ores." Tai Yuan also said, "At least, from this mineral vein, we can see that even the mineral veins in the sea realm are not simple, unlike the spiritual stone mineral veins, which can be excavated by a Venerable Realm expert with some time." As soon as Yi Lan and the others arrived at the entrance of the village, they saw a group of teenagers running around and shouting, "Sister Lan, come back safely! Sister Lan, come back safely!" There was also a group of teenagers rushing over. Yi Lan casually waved her hand and hundreds of small energy crystals were scattered over, which were snatched by the group of teenagers. These were the energy crystals of the Law Enforcer Realm Hound Fong Black Snappers. They didn't contain a lot of energy, but it was enough for these youths to cultivate. Only then did Han Fei and the others understand why Yi Lan and the others waited for the leader of the Dog Fong Black Snappers to give birth. It turned out that they prepared it for these teenagers. The Sword God said, "These teenagers are not weak. They are only in their teens and have basically reached the realm of hidden fissures. Even in this chaotic wasteland, their spiritual heritage has reached level 5 or 6. Whether it is the strength of their bodies or the potential of their spiritual heritage, they are not low." Han Fei nodded. "Although the environment is harsh, relatively speaking, if it weren't for the high danger here, they would have grown faster if they grew up normally." Yi Lan and the others said, "Go find the village leader. There are guests in our village." Guests? Many teenagers looked around, looking for where the guests were. Han Fei and the others appeared quietly and arrived outside the village in an instant. Many people exclaimed, "Master Scavengers?" As soon as Han Fei and the others appeared, the strong masters who were just guarding the village all tensed up. The arrival of scavengers might not be a good thing. Only powerful people could become scavengers, and there were very few Venerable Realm scavengers. Now 6 scavengers appeared at once, which meant that there were 6 Pioneer Sea Realm powerhouses. There were not so many Pioneer Sea Realm powerhouses in the entire Little Sea Village, so these people were naturally very nervous. However, since Yi Lan brought them back, one reason was that the other party was absolutely strong, so Yi Lan had no choice. Another reason was that these people should be easy to talk to and were not evil people. However, people's hearts were sinister and could not be seen through in 1 or 2 encounters, so everyone was still very scared. However, the people of the Little Sea Village seemed to have entertained scavengers more than once, so when Han Fei and the others appeared, the captain of the guards guarding the village immediately stepped forward, cupped his fists, and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoists, I am Zhou Hai, the captain of the guards of the Little Sea Village. Welcome to our Little Sea Village. The tidal wave may be coming soon. If you don't mind, can you stay in our Little Sea Village for a while?" Han Fei nodded slightly. "That's why I came." This was Zhou Hai's test. He wanted to know if Han Fei and the others came here to temporarily avoid the tidal wave. Hearing Han Fei's affirmative answer, he immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Because the Little Sea Village was only so big, when Han Fei and the others arrived, the village leader soon found them. Without any notice, he immediately rushed over, and the direction he came to was the underground mineral vein. The village leader turned out to be a woman. Although she looked a little dirty, she still cupped her hands to Han Fei and the others from a distance. "Welcome, fellow Taoists. I am Zhao Jing, the village leader of the little sea village. Nice to meet you. Han Fei cupped his hands slightly. Nice to meet you, fellow Taoists. We passed by the 8091 area. Because we estimated that the tidal wave might break out at any time, we specially came to your village to take shelter. Zhao Jing smiled and said, Nice to meet you. Please. Kong Shin said to the others via voice transmission, They are very nervous. That's just a show of politeness. Han Fei said, This is just a small village. 6 scavengers came at once, which can almost sweep their village. How can they not be nervous? Since we have come out, we don't care about staying here for too long. Since they are so afraid of the tidal wave, I am afraid it is not suitable for us to go out now. Why don't we take shelter here for the time being and find out more about the sea realm by the way? Chapter 21-23. The arrival of the scavengers attracted a lot of people to watch secretly. Although everyone knew that the scavengers were very strong, who didn't want to see the real strong? Han Fei walked along the way. In the entire little sea village, humans accounted for about 60% and humanoids accounted for about 20%. For example, some people were blue, a bit like a miniature version of Avatar. There were also some brawny men with giant bloodlines. These people had big heads, thick bodies, and well-developed limbs. At first glance, they were obviously good at mining. In addition, there were some humanoids with fish scales on their bodies, and the lines on their faces were a bit stiff. Anyway, they were not the kind of people that Han Fei and the others could appreciate. As for the other 20% of races, there were a few stone men and a few spider men. In short, there were not many of them. Some people were curious, but none of them were surprised. The residence of the village leader was actually no different from that of ordinary people. It was just a small courtyard built with white jade stones. Han Fei said, Fellow Taoist Zhao Jing, I heard that some human history can only be heard by human groups in remote places. I wonder if you know anything about the ancient history of our human race? Zhao Jing didn't expect that Han Fei would start the conversation with this topic. Hearing Han Fei's question, it was obvious that he was not from an ordinary small place. This made Zhao Jing immediately suspect whether Han Fei and the others were from a powerful feudal land, or even from the scavenger city. But on this topic, Zhao Jing smiled bitterly and said, Fellow Taoist, what's your name? Han Fei said, My name is Ren Tianfei. Tai Yuan and the others were directly speechless. What do you mean by Ren Tianfei? You just opened your mouth and said it. You were so familiar with it. Zhao Jing said, Fellow Taoist Ren, in remote small villages like ours, there are actually very few people who know the ancient history of the human race. If you really want to know this knowledge, I'm afraid you still need to read some historical materials in the big cities. Of course, they may also be destroyed. After all, the scavenger city is not the main city of human beings. Han Fei frowned. The scavenger city was not the main city of human beings, which meant that there was another race in charge of this main city. Zhao Jing followed. It's already good enough for a small village like ours to survive. Even if we know it, it may be lost in the death of generations of village leaders. Han Fei asked, Oh, is life in the little sea village so difficult? Zhao Jing smiled bitterly. Every 10 years we have to pay pure stones and resources. Under the 50% tax, all the venerable ones in the village are not allowed to casually cultivate in the village. They have to join the hunting team and hunt for resources by themselves. It's not easy for us to survive under such circumstances. Scavenger City was said to have 13,000 domains. Actually, it was already very rare for there to be 10,000 domains left. Many villages have become a thing of the past due to the tidal waves and such high taxes, quietly disappearing from the chaotic wasteland. Our little sea village is considered pretty good. It just happens that we are relying on a huge pure stone mine, so the village can be relatively peaceful. Han Fei couldn't help but frown. Has human life come to this level? Zhao Jing shook her head inwardly, thinking that these people had never been to such a remote place. She didn't know why they thought of picking up scraps here. Han Fei murmured and immediately said, "Leader Zhao, although the little sea village has lost its history, it should have a historical record of tens of thousands of years, right? In addition, I hope Village Chief Zhao can give me a sea map of Mountain City. We went too far, so we don't have a sea map of this place." Hearing this, Zhao Jing immediately said, "No problem. I will arrange for Zhou Hai to send it to you later. Everyone, this is my residence. If you don't mind, you can live here during this period of time." Han Fei wondered, "What about you?" Zhao Jing looked at the mining area and said, "The tidal waves are approaching. The tax collector of Mountain City should be coming soon. In the past 100 years, the cultivation of our villagers has consumed a lot of pure stones. I have to dig them up as soon as possible. I can't accompany you." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Then I'll have to trouble you." The pure stones that Zhao Jing mentioned were white jade mines, which were also the things that Yilan used to hunt canine Fong black snappers that could burst out pure electric arcs. In this village of 300,000 people, there were as many as 300 venerable realm powerhouses, and some of them might not have returned yet. Maybe the pure stones were indeed very useful, so they were in such short supply. Although Han Fei's arrival caused a sensation for a while, no one dared to come to see them. Only Zhou Hai, the chief guard of the little sea village, soon came over with a pile of jade slips. Zhou Hai said, "Guys, these are all the historical materials of our little sea village. If you need anything, you can directly ask Zhoulan. She lives next door." After Zhou Hai left, the sword god said, "It can be seen that they are very afraid of us, but they can't do anything about it. It can be seen that the human race in the sea realm has been facing all kinds of dangers, so they have to do this." Kong Shin asked, "The pure stones seem to be very important. Do we need to dig some to take with us?" Han Fei shook his head. "No. Even the village leader is digging. I don't know if they can support them to survive the so-called tidal waves after paying 50% of the taxes. Even if we need them, now is not the time." Tai Yuan nodded. "Yes. Once we take away their pure stones, the entire little sea village may disappear under the tidal wave. There are more than 300,000 people, and most of them are human beings. We can't do this." Han Fei separated the pile of jade slips. "Let's take a look and see if there is any useful information." Han Fei picked up the sea map of the mountain city. The little sea village was naturally not their destination, nor was the mountain city. However, they needed a transition. They had to go to the mountain city first, and then get the sea map of the entire scavenger city, and even the entire chaotic wasteland. This was their ultimate goal. Different from the sword god, who wanted to go to the Eastern Sword Pavilion, Han Fei had two things to do first. One was to find the Yin family, which probably knew the location of the chaotic sea. If the Yin family was not eliminated, there would be endless troubles in the future. The other was to find the body of the old Yuan. The old Yuan was also in the heaven-opening state, and if he really returned to his body, his strength would also be great. However, this had to be discussed separately. As for why the old Yuan was sealed, where he was sealed, and whether he could get his body back, Han Fei had to think about it carefully. When Han Fei scanned with his perception, he immediately imprinted a large sea map in his mind. Although the sea map was not very complete, the mountain city was in the center of this sea map. According to the map, it was probably about 300 million kilometers away from the little sea village. For Han Fei and the others, this was not a very long distance. Since the location had been determined, if nothing happened on the way, they would arrive in a day. Even if they were in the sea opening state, it would only take a few days. Around the little sea village, there were about 40 villages marked. Most of these villages also lived by mines, and their way of life was probably similar to that of the little sea village. The proportion of humans should also be about the same. Half a day later, After they read all the historical materials of the little sea town, they had a basic understanding of the chaotic wasteland. There was no record of the origin and development of human beings in the little sea town. Only about 30,000 years of history could be traced back. When the little sea town was first established, the number of humans here was actually as many as 1,000,000. However, in such an environment they needed to mine, build a village, and deal with ominous creatures. With so many difficulties, when the little sea village was completely built, the population had been reduced by more than half. Later, after the village was built, humanoid clans of other races joined in one after another. After tens of thousands of years of recuperation, there were 7 or 8 sea opening state powerhouses. Unfortunately, the conditions were difficult in the past, and many of them died when resisting the tidal waves. And the tidal waves were dark tides. When the tidal waves came, the entire chaotic wasteland would fall into darkness. They had to resist it with purity stones. Fighting with ominous creatures required a lot of purity stones. Of course, there was no absolute good or bad. If a village could survive, then the harvest after the war was a large number of energy crystals, enough for a village to digest for decades, or even decade. If they were lucky, it was even possible to use them for hundreds of years. Secondly, in the sea area under the jurisdiction of the scavenger city, the status of humans was not high. They could be directly regarded as minors. Among these more than 10,000 domains, there were not many people who could go from villages to lord small cities. And there were even fewer who could go from lord small cities to main cities. However, many people worked hard for this. In their view, there was a possibility of becoming strong in main cities, so that they could better protect their villages. And the strong they thought were mostly scavengers. Han Fei actually had a clear understanding of this way of growth. He had gone all the way from the heavenly water village to the chaotic vast sea. So did the other people in these villages. It was said that the scavenger city was controlled by a humanoid clan called the 10,000 Scales clan. The city lord was praised as the 10,000 Scales emperor, the ruler of the scavenger city, and also the strongest person. Under the city lord, there were 132 cities, and the lord of a small city was the lord. Every lord controlled 100 domains, and it was said that their strength was at the heaven-opening state. Seeing this, Han Fei and the others all looked shocked. This meant that there were venerable emperors in the scavenger city, and as many as 132 heaven-opening state powerhouses. This number really shocked Han Fei and the others. This was just the F***King scavenger city. There were 3 such huge cities in the chaotic wasteland. If they could be on an equal footing with the scavenger city, didn't it mean that the chaotic wasteland, the most remote place of the East Sea Divine Land, had 3 venerable emperors? Then what about the entire East Sea Divine Land? Tian Yuan couldn't help but sigh. Sure enough, the Sea Realm is the real big world. Chapter 21-24. Even though Han Fei and the others were all together, they didn't interfere with each other when they were cultivating. Han Fei pretended to be in the state of cultivation, but in fact, he was concentrating his mind. After sealing his soul, he said to the old turtle, "Okay, just say it." The old turtle immediately said, "I know a little about the divine land of the East Ocean. My real body is sealed in the divine demon sea, not far from the chaotic wasteland." Han Fei asked, "The divine demon sea? It doesn't sound like a good place. It's probably no better than the chaotic wasteland. Tell me, how far is the divine demon sea from the chaotic wasteland?" The old turtle said, "Not far, not far. The divine demon sea and the chaotic wasteland are neighbors. No wonder I was summoned by you. It turns out that we're next door." Han Fei was speechless. "Who's next door to you?" "We're separated by the chaotic wasteland. However, since your sealed place is next to the chaotic wasteland, you should know the surrounding environment, right? The first thing I'll do is not to find your real body. You've waited for so many years. Why don't you wait a few more years?" Let me settle down in the chaotic wasteland first. You want to settle down in the chaotic wasteland? That's not a good place. The chaotic wasteland, the divine demon sea, and the boundless mining area are no better than the chaotic wasteland. My suggestion is that you go to the divine capital dynasty. That's where the prosperity of the great world is. Han Fei said leisurely, You want me to go to the divine capital dynasty without dealing with the infamily and protecting the chaotic sea first? The old turtle said, You want to deal with the infamily, which is a big family with an emperor. If the infamily is a force in the chaotic wasteland and has 2 emperors, it must be one of the 3 main cities, and it's very likely that it's a city lord. Although I don't know much about the situation in the chaotic wasteland, I know that you can't beat a city lord so easily. Han Fei was intrigued. What? You live next door to the chaotic wasteland. You don't even know what's going on in the chaotic wasteland? Han Fei now understood that someone at the level of Old Yuan could only be regarded as a small lord. He used to think that Elder Yuan was very strong, but now it seemed that Elder Yuan's status wasn't that high. Just like that, Old Yuan said that he had a great opportunity for him. What kind of great opportunity could a little lord have for him? Even if he wanted to go to the Sea of Gods and Demons, he couldn't just rush in without knowing anything. He should first understand the place before making a long-term plan. Old Yuan's voice reverberated, We turtles don't usually move. Before the Sea of Divinity and Demons was sealed away, we rarely came to the Chaos Wastelands. This place is very evil. You really have to take those tidal waves seriously. Actually, this thing wasn't caused by the divine wars. The primal Chaos Wasteland is not a place that only appeared after the War of the Gods. Oh? Tell me about it. Han Fei was immediately interested. This was different from what Yilan said. However, Yilan was only at the Venerable Realm. There were too many things she didn't know. What she knew was either what others wanted them to know or what she heard. Naturally, she couldn't compare with Old Yuan, a native of the Sea Realm. Old Yuan said, The chaotic wasteland has existed since millions of years ago. The history of the tidal waves is as long as that of the chaotic wasteland. However, the frequency of the tidal waves was very low. Later, in order to find the source of the tidal waves, strong masters came here. As far as I know, deep in the chaotic wasteland, at the source of the tidal waves, there should be a great horror, which is why the divine wars broke out here. Of course, the so-called divine wars are not the battles where the gods fell. That battle is not here, and it can't be here. Otherwise, the entire East Sea Divine Land would have been destroyed. Han Fei was speechless. Are you exaggerating? The chaotic wasteland is not small. The territory of a main city is so vast. Is this not enough for the divine spirits? Old Yuan said, It's enough for one divine spirit to fight, but it's definitely not enough for so many creatures to fight again. Anyway, just listen to me. If you're not strong enough, don't try to find the source of the tidal waves. Look at the 3 big cities in the chaotic wasteland, which are guarded by venerable emperors. The tidal waves still come as they should. You'll know how horrible the source is. Han Fei nodded slightly. He believed the old turtle's hint. If the history of the chaotic wasteland was really that long, this would be a proper history. But Yilan said that after the divine wars, the starting ground was explored and became a primitive graveyard. It didn't feel right that it ended here. After all, she said that the starting ground was in the Star Ocean, so the chaotic wasteland should be a strange space that could connect to the Star Ocean. This place was more like a teleportation door. But for some reason, this space was invaded and shrouded by the tidal waves and became what it was now. Of course, this was just Han Fei's guess. The old turtle might not know the real answer. But what the old turtle said about the history of the chaotic wasteland was definitely more accurate than what Yilan said. Han Fei said, I won't care about the tidal waves for the time being. I don't have the ability to explore the secrets of the source. But I'm not in a hurry to go to the divine demon sea. Although the chaotic wasteland is not very suitable for living, it's only relative. The tidal waves only happen once in 100 years, and the most recent one is coming. The most recent one was about to come. After this, I would be like a fish in water. Even if the ominous lifeforms were stronger than me, they would still be like floating clouds to me. Maybe this place is more suitable for me. The old turtle knew that he couldn't persuade Han Fei for the time being, so he just reminded him, "In that case, you have to be careful. Don't provoke the venerable emperors. That's a realm that neither you nor I have experienced. The means of the venerable emperors may be beyond our imagination." Han Fei said, "I'm not stupid. Don't you know anything else about the chaotic wasteland? For example, about the human race?" Just when Han Fei asked this question, he suddenly sensed that someone was coming. "Leader of the Little Sea Village, where is Zhao Jing?" Outside the Little Sea Village, 3 pioneer sea realm powerhouses descended majestically. Taking a closer look, Han Fei found that these 3 people were covered with dark green scales, even on their faces, except that the scales on their faces were more delicate. These 3 people also had tails. Han Fei didn't know what they evolved from, but they looked a bit like dragon tails. Han Fei suspected that they had the bloodline of the dragon race. All in all, with the naked eye, Han Fei could see that their bodies contained extremely terrifying energy. They must be the 10,000 Scales clan, which completely matched the characteristics of the 10,000 Scales clan recorded in the historical records of the Little Sea Village. Swish! Zhao Jing strode to the entrance of the Little Sea Village and shouted, "Zhao Jing greets the 3 emissaries. The clean stones are ready. Please have a look." At this moment, Han Fei, Tai Yuan, and the others stopped cultivating one after another and looked at the 3 powerhouses of the 10,000 Spirits clan with great interest. Because Han Fei's level was high enough, these 3 people couldn't find them at all. At the entrance of the village, Zhou Hai and the others were a bit jealous when they saw Zhao Jing take out a huge number of clean stones. They dug them out day after day, but half of them were taken away at once. Anyway, every time the tax emissaries came, they would be depressed for a while. Zhao Jing didn't look like a king. She dug the stones herself and finally caught up with them. It didn't matter if she was dirty. However, when the 3 powerhouses of the 10,000 Scales clan saw the clean stones that Zhao Jing took out, they couldn't help but frown. The leader yelled, "Why is there still 30% of the primordial ores? Are you trying to embezzle the clean stones?" Zhao Jing hurriedly said, "I dare not, Master Tax Emissary. Although there is 30% of the primordial ores, there are a lot of primordial ores. After the quenching, the quantity will not be reduced. Please make an exception, Master Tax Emissary. Many powerhouses of our village died during the last tidal wave, which slowed down the mining speed. Besides, the cultivation of the villagers also needs." "Enough. I don't want to hear your explanation. Anyway, the primordial ores are not enough. Either you give me the quenched clean stones, or I'll increase the tax by 10%. "What? Increase the tax by 10%? Zhou Hai's expression changed drastically. "Master Tax Emissary, the tidal wave is coming. We haven't even had time to quench our primordial ores. If you increase the tax now, you are putting our village in a dead end." The 10,000 Scales clan powerhouse's eyes turned cold. "Since you told me that, which village was really hit? Also, don't question my decision anymore. Otherwise, 70%. Zhou Hai was enraged. Just as he was about to say something, Zhao Jing stopped him. "Zhou Hai, shut up." Zhao Jing's pupils shrunk. After a few moments of silence, she ordered the entire village, "Everyone, if you still have clean stones, hand them over. Give me the energy crystals as well." The 10,000 Scales clan powerhouse's expression was indifferent. "You only have an hour. After collecting your village, I will go to the next one. There is still at least half a month before the tidal wave. You still have time to dig." Zhao Jing gritted her teeth and yelled again, "Quick, hand them all to me in 15 minutes." Zhou Hai was so enraged that he almost went crazy. Zhao Jing was gambling with the lives of the entire village. In half a month's time, even if all the villagers dug without rest, they might not be able to make it in time. At this moment, the 10,000 Scales clan's tax emissary looked at Zhou Hai. Are you angry? I can feel your murderous intent. Despicable human, how dare you show such murderous intent towards me? As he finished, the tax emissary punched out and the entrance of the little sea village was instantly flattened. Zhou Hai was shocked and his blood boiled. He only dared to defend but did not dare to retaliate. Bam! His figure was sent flying 1,000 miles away and blood splattered across the sky. From the beginning to the end, although Zhao Jing wanted to attack, she held herself back. Otherwise, if the tax emissary of the 10,000 Scales clan requested for more taxes, it would be over. The 10,000 Scales clan's tax emissary humphed coldly. This is the consequence of being unkind towards me. Just as the tax emissary of the 10,000 Scales clan stopped, a voice was heard. Hey! What did you say? Despicable human? Say it again. Chapter 21-25. Since he was the human emperor, the human race was Han Fei's belief. How could Han Fei ignore the fact that an alien race was belittling the human race? The crowd holding the pure stones made way for him. Han Fei approached from afar, and came to the entrance of the village in 2 or 3 steps. Han Fei asked, Are you belittling the human race? Zhao Jing's face changed drastically. Han Fei was a foreign scavenger. She knew that Han Fei and the others were not afraid of the tax collector. However, the tax collector represented the mountain city, and above the mountain city, there was the city of scavengers. Han Fei could leave if he provoked the tax collector, but the little sea village couldn't. Otherwise, how could she bear the humiliation? Zhao Jing was about to scold Han Fei. However, Han Fei glanced at her, and Zhao Jing couldn't speak as if she was struck by lightning. Zhao Jing swore that she had never seen such a look in her life. His pupils were as deep as the abyss, and she even had the urge to kneel. Oh, it turns out that your little sea village has another sea pioneer. No wonder you can't even pay this year's taxes. Humph, kid, do you know who you're talking to? Han Fei asked, Do you know who you're talking to? In Han Fei's eyes, this person was already dead. The little sea village might have its own difficulties, but couldn't they just kill the mountain-traversing city? I'd rather save a village and slaughter a city. Anyway, anyone who is not human can be killed. The tax collector's eyes turned cold. Isn't this person from the little sea village? That makes sense. If the little sea village has a new king in 100 years, they would know about it. The tax collector said, Kid, I don't know where you're from, but I'm the tax collector of the 10,000 Scale clan. You provoked the 10,000 Scale clan. Do you want the little sea village to perish with you? The tax collector was not stupid. He only had 3 people, and he didn't know who this person was or whether he should beat him up. But since this person was a human and dared to argue with him, it showed that he cared a lot about the human bloodline. However, Han Fei snorted. You dare to threaten me? The tax collector was speechless. What? You're also a sea pioneer and you're so arrogant? After today's matter, he would bring people to wipe out the little sea village as soon as possible. At that moment, Zhou Hai returned. However, because he did not dare to fight back, he was slightly injured. At this moment, he saw Han Fei looking at the 3 tax collectors aggressively. It's a crime to belittle human beings. The 3 of you, are you going to commit suicide to atone for your crimes, or do you want me to grind your bones to dust? At this time, because of Zhao Jing's words, every family in the little sea village brought their pure stones to pay taxes, and they saw such a domineering scene. This scavenger actually dared to threaten the tax collector. Although they were also worried, wouldn't this be putting their little sea village in danger? But why was it so satisfying? He saw one of the tax collectors shouted, How dare you! Threatening the tax collectors, I think you don't want to live anymore. No matter who you are, do you think you're stronger than my 10,000 scales tribe's 10,000 scales emperor? Han Fei reached out and grabbed, and the man who spoke felt his blood and chi stagnated, his flesh and blood tightened, and his soul seemed to be grasped. His body flew into the air uncontrollably. Han Fei's voice was cold. Who gave you permission to interrupt when I was talking? Bam! The body of the man, a sea expansion realm cultivator, suddenly exploded, and a void array condensed in an instant. The man, together with his body and soul, exploded in that small area. The surrounding seawater didn't even move. Hiss! At that moment, Zhao Jing and Zhou Hai were both dumbfounded. How could this be the means of a sea expansion realm cultivator? With a wave of his hand, a sea expansion realm cultivator died on the spot. How could this man be a sea expansion realm cultivator? Who are Han Fei's people? Wow! The tax collector is dead? Many teenagers, young people, and adults in the little sea village were all dumbfounded. That was a tax collector. A super strong sea expansion realm cultivator. This human scavenger just clenched his fist, and he died? In the back, Tai Yuan said lightly, Han Fei is a bit too impulsive. He's used to being domineering. Now the mountain city has to be slaughtered. Wang Yijian nodded. Very good. The 10,000 scales tribe deserves to be killed for making the human race work for them. The Snail King said, after all, this is their territory. If we flatten the mountain city, the emperor in the scavenger's city will know about it. The sword god said, so, we have to be fast. Kong Shen narrowed his eyes and said, since these tax collectors said that the tidal wave will happen in half a month, it means that we can actually take action in the next half a month. As long as we get the sea map of the chaotic wasteland, we can leave here. They could only think so. It seemed that they had to leave today. The remaining two tax collectors were dumbfounded. The tax collector leader looked at Han Fei in shock, and his body trembled slightly. You are not a sea expansion realm cultivator. When Han Fei's terrifying pressure and intimidating killing intent descended, the two tax collectors' knees became unsteady. No matter how hard they tried, they still knelt on the ground with a thud. Han Fei stretched out his hand and walked to the two of them step by step. If you kill yourselves, you might die a quick death. I gave you a chance, but unfortunately, you didn't cherish it. In your next life, remember to keep your mouth clean. Seeing Han Fei stretch out his hand and press on their heads, the tax collector leader was both frightened and roared, you killed tax collectors. The mountain city won't let you go. The emperor of 10,000 scales won't let you go. Shut up. You always talk about the emperor of 10,000 scales. Is the emperor your father? Bam! Han Fei pressed his hands, and the bodies of these two pioneer sea realm experts exploded in an instant, just like the previous man. Even the surrounding seawater didn't tremble at all. Several star shells flew out of the void. Han Fei threw one to Zhao Jing and said casually, humans will never yield to other races. I'll take care of the mountain city. As for you, forget everything that happened today. Do you remember? Zhao Jing had a complicated feeling. This was the only human emperor she had ever seen in her life. She knew that to save the little sea village, the experts of the 10,000 Scales clan in the mountain city had to die. So, at this moment, Zhao Jing bowed deeply to Han Fei. From today on, everyone in the little sea village will forget everything that happened today. Thank you for your help, Master. The human race will never yield to other races. Zhou Hai, Yilan, and the others were also astonished. Their hearts were filled with indescribable complex emotions. Yilan felt like she was dreaming. She had never thought that she would bring back a human emperor. Zhao Jing and the others only saw a flash of golden light. Then, Han Fei disappeared into thin air. They didn't even notice the ripples in the air. When Zhao Jing came back to her senses and looked at her residence again, there was no one there. The six of them had all disappeared without a trace. At this moment, Zhao Jing was shocked. If they were kings, they wouldn't have left so quietly. So, not only Han Fei was an emperor, but all 6 of them were. Holding the star shell in her hand, Zhao Jing was confused. 6 human emperors appeared all of a sudden? Were they hiding themselves, or were there other reasons? She seemed to see a glimmer of hope for the rise of the human race. Some experts were rising in the dark and fighting back. Maybe, one day, she could see the rule of the 10,000 Scales clan being overthrown by the human race. Even though the hope was slim, it was still hope. Hiss, taking a deep breath, Zhao Jing turned around and yelled coldly, "From now on, everyone in the Little Sea Village must forget what happened today. No talking, no voice transmission. Don't even think about it. No outsiders have come to the Little Sea Village recently. Otherwise, if one of them leaks the news, everyone in the Little Sea Village will die." A million kilometers away, Han Fei and the other 5 stopped. Tai Yuan said, "The 3 of them died at the same time. I'm afraid the Lord of the Mountain City has already noticed it. We have to go at full speed and kill the Lord of the Mountain City as soon as possible. Otherwise, once the news spreads to the Scavenger City, the consequences will be unimaginable. We don't know the strength of the venerable emperor." However, Han Fei spread out his hands, and 3 drops of essence blood appeared in his hands. The Snail King exclaimed, "Huh? The 3 of them are still alive?" Han Fei said, "Now is not the time for us to take action. The venerable emperor's means are indeed unpredictable. I'm not sure if he has the ability to see through the entire Scavenger Sea area. So, I'll keep the 3 of them alive until we reach the Mountain City." The Sword God nodded. "But the Lord of the Mountain City must be killed sooner or later. Otherwise, he will find out something is wrong." Han Fei nodded. "So we have to go to the Mountain City now. Didn't you say that the tide wave will arrive in half a month? Even if we have to kill them, we have to take advantage of the tide wave. Of course, we don't have to kill them. If we can make them into puppets." Tai Yuan and the others' eyes lit up. Yes, if they were made into puppets, they could not only not alarm the Scavenger City, but also occupy a place in the chaotic wasteland. When the time came, it would be of great use to decide whether to stay or leave. Besides, there was a corpse refinement expert in Han Fei's Origin Sea. He didn't expect that Hong Yu's Tao would be so useful at this moment. Chapter 21-26. 3 days later, Han Fei and the others set off from the Little Sea Village. If they moved at full speed, it would only take them about a day to reach the Mountain City. But after all, this was a world they were not familiar with, and they wanted to observe the ominous creatures here along the way, so they didn't move so fast. Today, even though they weren't fast, they were not far from the Mountain City, only half a day's journey at most. At this moment, in Han Fei's perception, a large school of blue sea snakes appeared. There were at least 10,000 of them. In the sea, there were too many groups of 10,000 marine creatures, but a group of 10,000 venerable realm sea snakes was almost exaggerated. If this happened in the chaotic Azure Sea, wouldn't it be a complete mess? That place could easily become a superforce. However, there were still people hunting such a group of venerable realm sea snake. They were 5 frogman powerhouses. Han Fei had killed frogman powerhouses before, so he recognized them at a glance. At this moment, these 5 people quickly swam around the sea snakes, throwing out the clean stone torpedoes in their hand. It was like a net of lightning bursting out from the bottom of the sea. With every strike, dozens of sea snakes would be purified. Judging from the usage of the clean stone torpedoes, they were far richer than Yilan and the others. When they first met Yilan, they probably only had a total of 6 clean stone torpedoes. Yilan even secretly hid one as a backup. In that one battle, they almost lost their lives. The Snail Empress asked, "What kind of race is this?" "They look very similar to humans, except that their eyes are slightly bigger and they look a little ugly. Your ability to shapeshift isn't just a little bit inferior to mine." Han Fei thought to himself, "You're just a snail. Why do you think they're ugly?" Han Fei said, They must be the so-called scavengers. We encountered a lot of ominous creatures along the way, but we didn't see any scavengers. This place is close to the mountain city, and these scavengers are probably going to the mountain city to avoid the tidal waves. Kong Shun asked, should we treat them as enemies or ignore them? Han Fei smiled. I think they've discovered us. Huh. Kong Shun and the others frowned. They were merely king tiers, and they were hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, yet they had already been discovered? However, those people's attacks had indeed slowed down, as if to prevent someone from appearing. Han Fei thought it was necessary to let Tai Yuan and the others know that these people in the sea realm were actually not weak. Their perception ability, soul power, resistance to pressure, etc., were stronger than those in the chaotic ocean. Of course, this was only because their living environment was different from the chaotic vast ocean. If the chaotic vast ocean's human race migrated to the chaotic wasteland, they would probably become like them very quickly. Sure enough, the Frogman tribe's scavengers stopped their attacks and allowed the ominous creatures to escape. They quickly collected about 3,000 energy crystals and then looked in the direction of Han Fei and the others. Who dares to ruin our plans? Han Fei and the others didn't hide anymore. In fact, they didn't deliberately hide just now. They were just too confident and thought they wouldn't be discovered. When they appeared in front of the 5 frogmen, the frogmen narrowed their eyes slightly. Human scavengers? That's interesting. According to the rule of scavengers, if someone wants something, they can either fight or leave. You want to take the opportunity to attack us? What? Even humans dare to attack us frogmen now? Han Fei shrugged slightly. Why? Do you look down on us? The leader of the frogmen sneered. This is not the Wanderer's Sea. How dare you be so arrogant? The frogman suddenly jumped up, a spiral appeared in his eyes, and a long accumulated soul gaze hit the souls of Han Fei and the others. At the moment when the frogman attacked, the other 4 frogmen also jumped up, and the thorny long knives in their hands swept across the sky, and the blades were covered with black ominous gas. This time, Han Fei didn't even need to attack. Kong Shun held the abyss scepter and pointed at the void. The minds of these people seemed to be swallowed by the abyss, and half of their attack power was instantly absorbed. Then, there was a centipede phantom crawling in the void, and the centipede's sharp claws hooked on these people, making a piercing sound. Just when Kong Shun felt that he could easily sweep through these 5 people, he heard the frogman in the lead suddenly open his mouth. A strange croaking sound rang out. The phantom of the great heavenly centipede was actually shattered by this sound. These frogmen took the opportunity to choose to explode their weapons at the same time and then retreat. Boom, boom, boom! The explosion of the 5 sea-quelling bizarre treasures shook even Kong Shun a little. However, Kong Shun was proud of himself as the heaven creator, but he couldn't even defeat 5 sea-opening realm masters. How could he lose face? Above the abyss scepter, a dark green beam of light burst out and blasted open a passage in the explosion of the terrifying weapons. Kong Shun took a step forward, and his huge hand grabbed at these people. The frogman said in horror, "Not good, it's a heaven creator, a secret method, a trump card." The hearts of these people shook violently. How could they have imagined that they would encounter a sovereign realm expert here? Why would such a character come out to scavenge? Did they make a big mistake? But even so, why would they target a few sea-opening realm frogmen? However, these frogmen didn't have time to think so much. Almost at the same time, the 5 people shed a layer of flesh on their bodies, which exploded in the air, and a large amount of white liquid directly froze the sea within 10,000 miles. It's over. The 5 people soared to the fastest speed, trying to break through the void and escape in an instant. However, Kong Shun wouldn't be stopped by a secret method of this level. With a bang, the ice broke, and a giant vortex formed behind the 5 people. The terrible rotating force directly sealed the entrance of the void that had just been opened. The 5 frogman kings were sucked back at the same time. Kong Shun stretched out his hand, trying to capture these 5 people. At this moment, he wasn't ready to kill them yet. However, when he slapped down, he saw 3 frogmen suddenly spit out a bottle from their mouth. As the bottle exploded, a large amount of ominous aura burst out. Bastard! Bam! 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 At the same time as these 3 people exploded, Kong Shun's face also changed drastically. He didn't expect that he would be tricked by a few kings. This ominous aura couldn't be touched at will. Kong Shun intended to suppress the remaining 2 people with his coercion while preparing to cut off his hand. But the next moment, he saw a beam of holy light descending. The Tianqi divine technique instantly purified the so-called ominous aura. Tai Yuan and the others couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. The Tianqi divine technique was simply a great weapon in the chaotic wasteland. At this moment, Kong Shun's face was black as he saw the 2 frogmen actually broke through his coercion. Fortunately, he had already expected this situation, so he leaped over with a sword light and slashed out, directly killing one of them. Then, he stretched out his hand and grabbed the last person in the void. Bam! 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 At this time, in the chaotic wasteland, over the seabed, 4 beams of red light burst out like fireworks, and 4 frogmen died directly. However, this celestial phenomenon was much simpler. It was like a firework exploding in the sky. With a flash of red light, the celestial phenomenon ended before there was even a rain of blood. Kong Shun's face was black and he glanced at Han Fei, Tai Yuan, and the others a little awkwardly. I didn't expect a few Sea Expansion Realm cultivators to have so many tricks up their sleeves. Tai Yuan said thoughtfully, "It's a bit strange. These people, like the ominous creatures, can easily resist the coercion of the Emperor Realm. Their means and fighting skills are simple and neat, like kings who have been through wars for a long time. They are not weak." Tai Yuan nodded slightly. Yes, judging from the combat skills they used just now, their explosive power and the strength of their trump cards are a level higher than those in the chaotic vast sea. This should be related to the cultivation techniques and combat skills they cultivate. This means that the cultivation techniques in the sea realm are much more powerful than those in the chaotic vast sea. The sword god said, "This celestial phenomenon is too weak. It can only affect a radius of 10,000 kilometers. The strength of the space in the sea realm is also stronger than that in the chaotic vast sea." The Queen of Snails nodded. "I have the most right to say this, mainly because the upper limit of the heavenly law here is extremely high. The fact that I can use my full strength here is a very good proof." Han Fei took out the nautical panorama, turned it around, and suddenly sent 3 projections into the source sea of 3 frogmen to search for resources. Han Fei locked onto the last one with the void lines and activated the soul-searching technique. After a while, Han Fei suddenly grinned. "Everyone, I have good news. We already have the sea map of the scavenger city. The bad news is that this sea map only records most of the sea areas of the scavenger city, but I'm afraid it's not enough to leave the chaotic wasteland." The Queen of Snails asked, "What good news is that? If we can find the sea map of the scavenger city from these scavengers, what about the heaven-opening state cultivators?" Wang Yijin asked, "The Lord of Mountain City." Everyone immediately understood. The sea expansion state might not be powerful in the sea realm, but the number of heaven-opening state cultivators, even in the entire chaotic Star Island, was actually very small. On the surface, there might be only a few hundred heaven-opening state cultivators in the 3 main cities. At the Lord level, it was impossible that they didn't even have the sea map of the chaotic wasteland, right?